Welcome to another edition of AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AVRant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. I've seen Spider-Man Homecoming and War for the Planet of the Apes, and I have, they're both very good. Go see them both. That's my review. And I have a new most hated thing in movie theaters, which is I've taken to going to the D-Box screenings, and horsey bouncing. Horsey bouncing is apparently a thing.
That's
where anytime people are riding a horse, we're now going to be bouncing along with them. That is my new pet peeve.
You're an idiot for going to D-Box. I mean, the name of it alone. I'm sorry.
I
love you,
like
Rob, but you're an idiot for going to D-Box.
I like the two armrests, the reserved seat, the no chance of anyone kicking the back of my seat.
You can't turn it off?
I can turn it off. I mean,
Why don't you turn it off?
If I'm paying the extra to sit in the D-Box seat, I'm going to give
You're
it a
going to go
try.
like this every time a horse goes by?
Yeah, that could be enough to make me turn it off. No.
There you go. I do not approve of the box. All right. We got a lot of questions, so we're going to kind of jump into it pretty quickly here. I will say last week was a complete disaster for me. I had so much stuff going on that I'm just now catching up. And we're starting the podcast late because in order for my children, who are apparently now my indentured servants, to mow my grass tomorrow, which I don't want to do because it's Florida and it's hot, in the morning, they needed gas for the thing because I keep forgetting to go get some more. And I was like, if they don't mow it tomorrow, it's going to be a pain. So, and I'll have to mow it. And I don't want to mow it. So I had to go get gas. And that's why we're starting late. All right. First of all, this is AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us a question at avrant.com. You go to www.avrant.com. Leave us a comment there. Facebook.com/AVRant podcast. YouTube.com/C/AVRant. All those places we are active-ish. YouTube is questionable. I mean,
yeah,
we put stuff up there, but we don't read comments, generally. I mean, I think sometimes I know. I don't know how I know. I don't know. Google's very funny in this way. I will say that after using Alexa for a while, and it is much better. I've never used Siri, so I don't know how bad Siri is. It's much better than the Google person or AI, but it still kind of sucks. It's still kind of like
if
you don't use
Star Trek yet.
Yeah, if you just say play my Pandora Kids playlist, it's like I have no idea what you're talking about. You're like play my Pandora Kids station, and it will. Oh yeah, sure. Why did you say so in the first place? You know, it's supposed to be able to talk to my Ecobee. I can't get it to talk to the Ecobee at all, even though I follow all the instructions on how to do it. It won't talk to the Ecobee, which is a thermostat thing. It's supposed to do that. It's the first word problem. It's like my Alexa is in my kitchen, and 7 steps away is the Ecobee, where I just go like this. Or I could just literally do it from my phone or my computer, which is what I'm going to do right now because it's hot in here. So I'm going to turn it on. Look at this, right? I'm doing it right now. Here we go. Ready? What temperature's in here? Let's see. Hold on. We got to go to the portal. Loading my thermostat data. It's taking this. I have to just sign in. Yes, just sign me in. Come on. This is real. This is really happening. This is exciting.
Walking over to a thermostat stuff on the wall. No way it could take less time.
No way it could take me less time than this. It's actually not so bad in here, but I should probably set it down 1 more degree. But whatever. We'll monitor it. I'll let you guys know. This will be the Ecobee podcast. Riveting. If you want to contact us directly, Rob at avrant.com or at FirstReflect for Twitter, Tom at avrant.com or at avrant_Tom. You can also contact our producer, Austin. Austin is at Austin, TEN Pond. He has his own podcast, We Watch Movies podcast about coffee cups.
Okay.
Coffee cups. Not mugs. The kind of disposable cups you get from different places and the pluses and minuses. Apparently, they feel like those little corrugated sleeves that you put on the coffee cups at places like Starbucks are like training wheels for coffee cups, and you should never use them because a real coffee drinker with a real coffee cup should either be able to handle the heat or the coffee cup should be better. They're having a real problem because styrofoam is generally considered the best, but they're trying to be eco-friendly,
right.
So they're having a hard time. So they're experimenting right now with melting down all their styrofoam with acetone, but then they're dealing with the aftermath of the chemicals for acetone.
That's right.
It's a mess.
We watch movies.
We watch movies.
I don't drink coffee, but
I know you're weird. Coffee cups. In the news, real quick, SVS wanted to share some
we didn't thank listener of the week.
Oh, listener of the week, Luke. Luke went to www.avrant.com, clicked on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, and left us a PayPal donation. That PayPal donation goes in the coffers to help us pay for hosting fees and such and all that. Thank you very much, Luke, for supporting the podcast.
Yeah, Luke, thank you so much for the donation. I'll quickly mention Nathan has actually bought the thing from Rhythmic now. We mentioned it last week, but he's done it now, mentioned us again, so there you go. Thanks, Nathan.
Thanks, Nathan. In the news, SVS want to share some pics of the all-new all-SVS demo room set up by Hi-Fi Sales in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, which I think would be somewhere. I mean, New Jersey, how big can it be? So it's got to be near Liz, right? I mean, it looks very small on the map compared to other places. I mean, New Jersey is tiny. Anyways, 7 SVS Ultra Series speakers, 4 SVS Prime Elevation speakers, and dual PB16 Ultras. It's a little bit of bass. Subwoofers are all used to showcase a full Atmos system for potential customers. We are also attempting the setup of series of videos using 16 Ultra Series subwoofers in our producer Austin's open concept room. Okay, so how many times have you gotten questions on this podcast recently about how do I set up dual subwoofers in a big room that's open to the rest of my house?
Not a rectangle, odd-shaped openings here and there.
Hallways, right, that go down, stuff like that. Austin's got this room. And SVS said, hey, guys, you want to review the 16 Ultra? We're like, Rob and I are like, we totally want to, but our rooms are way too small. Yeah. There's just no way we could get them in our rooms.
Climb over it. That's not an exaggeration. I would have to climb over it.
If you put a cushion on top, perhaps I could be considered sitting on it. Some sort of reclining, PB Ultra or something. Anyway, so we're gonna. He's got the room. So my plan is to have Austin set these things up in his room, and do the calibration, video, you can do film it and everything. And Austin's our film guy, so it should look pretty good, right? And then I mean,
big time commitment for him, but hopefully we can get something.
We feel like he's got plenty of time. He hasn't complained at all. Who's not gonna complain about it? And then get the second either SB or PB, we haven't decided yet, Ultra sub, put both of them in there and have him try to calibrate both of them. And then maybe we'll talk with Herb over at Cross Spectrum Labs, see if we could do some measurements and some before afters, that sort of thing, and just film the whole thing. Now, I mean, Austin may do the voiceover, I may do the voiceover, Rob, I don't know, but it's going to be sort of a thing. It's going to be pretty cool, I think, if we can get it kind of set up. So we're in negotiations with SVS about that, but for now, you can look at these beautiful
don't expect
pictures.
it like soon. This is
don't
the
start
first
bugging
mention
me.
of it. This might be months away to get on because it's a big time commitment. So
it is, right? And we got to make sure that, and it's going to look. We got to make sure it's good too, because we want to be able to have SVS feature this on their setup page, because that's kind of the point here. So we might have some written articles along with the videos, but we're going to do short little snippets. It's going to be great. Hopefully, we're fingers crossed. But we'll keep you. I mean, literally, I got a response back. I sent it over the weekend. I got a response back today that said, "Yeah, it sounds like a good idea. Let's set it up." That's as far as we've gotten in the negotiations. So it might fall through. Who knows? Power Sound Audio has announced a new S720
S7201.
7201. It's just so hard when there's no hyphens to tell you where the anyway, 7201 model. Okay, if you don't know what that is, I don't either, because of all their previous subwoofers weren't big enough. Okay, so the S7201. This has, hold on a second here, make sure I'm saying this right, 4 18-inch drivers with a 4,000 watt amp with 8,000 watts peak amplifier, and a 22-inch wide, 36.5 inch deep, and 55.5 inch tall cabinet.
It can be laid on its side.
If it falls over, you're not going to be able to pick it up anyway.
So makes a difference.
Final weight isn't posted yet, but given that the dual 18-inch driver model weighs about just a shy of 200 pounds, this thing's probably going to be like 250, 300. I don't know. You can guess.
It's going to be heavy.
Yeah. Pre-orders are available now for $3,500. So these are just mock-ups here that we're looking at. These pictures.
Yeah.
These are not real.
It's an interesting design. It almost looks isobaric, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. So are they have the 4, so they have okay, so they have 2 firing in and then 2 more firing in as well.
And that whole cabinet is sealed.
Right.
But the backs of 2 of the drivers are open. right? So the backs of two of the drivers are open, and the
Or
fronts
what we're
of
looking
the
at here, like, is that like
other-
the port, or they're just letting us see what's inside?
No, that's what it is.
That's what it's going to look like.
It's
that
open
right there.
like that. So yeah, I'm not sure what you would call that design. It's not ported because the cabinet itself is sealed, but you have the front and the back of drivers open. Two of the drivers have their backs open. Two of the drivers have their fronts open. So I'm not quite sure what that design. They did it to cancel out force so that if this thing is laying on its side, it's not going to be shaking itself all over the place, even despite how heavy it is. But yeah, interesting design.
Very interesting. He'll get Austin put two of those in his room too.
Right.
All right, let's get some comments down here. Infinite Gary noticed that the prices on the 2016 Denon's AV receiver models have dropped a bit in the past week.
Mm-hmm.
The X3300W, for example, is down to $600 new at places like Crutchfield and B&H Audio. Photo audio, and now it's dropped to $550 at Accessories for Less. So you're good. So if you're good with the 2016 feature set and have been waiting for a deal on the AV receiver, it might be a good time right now. So there you go.
Worth looking.
Nathan just wanted to let us know that the conclusion of his 4 subwoofers and 4 corner story, he posted his Rhythmic F15 HP subwoofers for sale, but didn't get the sort of offers that would have made financial sense for selling them and buying 4 L12s. He's talked to Rhythmic. They mentioned that their L22 dual 12-inch driver model has a smaller footprint, only slightly less output than the F15 HP. So he ordered 2 of those and will add them to his F15 HPs, which he's keeping for now. So now we've got, instead of having 4 smaller subwoofers, which is what he want, he's got 4 big subwoofers.
Yes.
You have to shift some furniture, but it'll be nice to have the headroom, he says. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
You've got the headroom.
You'll be fine on that front. We know that.
No problem with the headroom. Your head might explode, but it'll be worth it, I suppose. Morgan, this is the questions now. We're getting into the questions. We're going to try to go fast because I want to get through as many as possible. Ecobee, what temperature is in here right now? Okay, thank you. I'm just making sure. Morgan asked his question in the comments of AVRant.com a few weeks ago, and somehow we missed it. I don't know how we did that. So apologies for the late reply. I blame myself this time because I've been out of town. So let's throw that one on me. He has a pair of KEF Q100 bookshelf speakers in white finish, and he's looking for a matching center speaker. The Q Series has recently undergone an update, and the new version of the Q Series speakers only have a larger, more expensive center speaker that replaces the older Q600C. Nothing to replace the smaller Q200C. So Morgan checked Accessories for Less, and they're still selling the Q200C, but not in white. So if matching the finish is out of the question, what are some good center speaker options to match this Q100 speakers for under $500? So if it's out of the if it's out of the question, why doesn't he just get the one he wants? Because it's in black.
Yeah, right. that was my initial thought, of course, which is like, if you're gonna end up with a mismatched finish anyway, how about just getting a black
the one
center?
the one you want in black?
Accessories for Less does have the Q200C. It's just only in black at the moment.
So is it like I don't know? Is it a glossy white?
Yeah, it's a bit glossy.
I mean, it doesn't make any difference which town you live in. There's going to be tons of furniture places around that you could just buy the black one and take your white one in and say, can you make these look the same? I mean, if it's that important to you.
Yeah, well, also, I mean, KEF is widely available.
Yeah.
Dealers don't run out of stock instantly. The Q200C was a widely available speaker, so it could be worth just looking around your local stores if somebody
Making some phone calls.
Yeah, has a Q200C in white in stock, because that's entirely. It won't be as cheap as Accessories for Less, but it'll still be under $500. It was anyway. Full retail price was under $500. So that's one option. Over at Accessories for Less, they do have the larger Q600C in white still available, but it's $550 and it's physically large. Like, I'm not sure if it'll physically fit where you're trying to put it, because it's big. It's a big, physically big center speaker, that one. Just to mention that update to the Q Series, the new 2017 Q Series, I'm a little bit disappointed because one of the things I liked about the previous Q Series is it was front ported, and now the new designs are all rear ported. They do offer optional port plugs if you're going to be putting it in a cabinet or close to a wall. But I liked that the old ones were front ported. So
yeah, I agree. That's what I would do. Do that.
There's that. I will mention, I'm not exactly sure how well it'll match, but ELAC has their Unify series, still using a concentric tweeter mid-range driver. They have their center speaker available in white for $500 as it so happens. But that checks all the boxes. It's not physically as large as the Q600, still a concentric driver design. Andrew Jones designed the ELAC Unify, so that's their UC5. So that's one option. And then if you just want, for some reason, a different brand that still has a nice neutral sound for $500, NHT does have their C series. They just call it their LCR Center.
Right.
In the C series, $500. Nice design. It has the tweeter above the mid-range, so that'll give you nice dispersion horizontally, but only available in black, that NHT. So
yeah, I'm trying to think of anybody else that sells white speakers off the top of my head. That would be...
I mean, SVS does, but only the satellites. They don't sell the prime center in white. They only sell the prime center in black. So, Ascend Acoustics will do a custom finish for you if you want them to, but it'll add cost.
So will Axiom, but, then you have to have
That's
an
already
Axiom
going
center
to be expensive.
Axiom Center channel, which just don't get an Axiom Center channel. Yeah, it's too bad that RBH doesn't sell their smaller center channel, the EMP Tech. That one's just too big. All right, let's go on. So, in the end, get the one that you want in black, and no one's gonna notice. I don't think, too. Especially if it's underneath the TV or something like that. No one's gonna notice.
No one's looking at that when they're looking at the screen.
That's right. Adam's room is exactly 15 feet from front wall to back wall, and he sits about 13 feet from the front wall. The windows are behind his seat, so it's very bright during the day. So he's been using a 48-inch Vizio TV that's good enough for watching TV and having cartoons on for the kids. 48 inches from 13 feet away. He also wears binoculars. At night, though, he'd love to be able to watch movies in a proper cinematic experience. He's thinking about installing a 120-inch screen that can roll down in front of the TV and installing a projector, ideally on the ceiling and behind his head. That's where he wants the projector to be. So it's only got 2 feet behind him, so it's basically going to be on the back wall. His budget is quite limited, though. He needs the projector screen and a ceiling mount, all for under $1,000.
Yep, that's doable.
It's doable. How badly do you need the ceiling mount for your projector? Because a shelf costs $20.
Oh, but there's cheap ceiling mounts too, man. So
yeah, I know, but I'd rather have a cheap shelf that I could trust and not a cheap
the
ceiling mount.
model of projector we're going to be recommending, the ceiling mount will be necessary.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we got some pictures here. You can see there's a fan in the way. Okay, I see. Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, and it totally looks like he's got the space on the ceiling that he could put a projector screen mounted on the ceiling up there. So that could work. Absolutely.
So we ask, is the BenQ HT2050 the best option for a $750 projector? Will it be possible to position it the way he wants? There is, like he said, like I just said, there's a ceiling fan in the room, so the projected image needs to clear that fan hanging down in front of it. In fact, if he's got windows behind him on the wall, he might not have space for a shelf anyways. Depends on how high those windows go up and, all of that. So, let's see here. The BenQ HT2050, is that his best option? Let's see here.
That's the one I would have pointed you to. I mean, it's kind of that or the Epson, 2040, I guess, or 2045. Yeah. But yeah, the HT2050, really nice projector. In that price class, I don't really think much does better. And the inexpensive Epson in that one gives you very little in the way of lens, just
lens
zoom
shift.
Or lens shift or positioning, anything. So HT2050, the thing to know about that, it doesn't have a huge long 1.3 to 1 zoom range. So to throw the 120-inch image that he wants, the lens can be as close as 10 feet and as far as 13 feet. Now, he says he wants to sit about 13 feet. If the lens is 13 feet and you are 13 feet, then the body of the projector is basically right above or just slightly behind your head.
But it's going to be over your head, dude. The best thing to do is to put it directly over your head, honestly.
Yeah.
It's just to be safe. You don't want to be right at the end of that lens shift or the zoom just in case.
Right.
You didn't measure exactly right and all of that. So
more or less directly above your head, but that should be okay. And then the other part of it is that the HT2050 does have a lens offset. Now, it actually has a little bit of vertical lens shift, which is kind of unusual for DLP in general, especially in the low price range, but it's nice that it has that. However, so imagine you've got this thing mounted to the ceiling, so it's upside down. Now, take the height of your screen.
Right.
take 5% of that height.
Yep.
In the case of 120-inch diagonal, 5% of that height is about 3 inches.
Yep.
And then you take 15% of the height, which is about 8.8 inches. It has to be, the top edge of the screen has to be that much lower than the center line of the lens. All right, so wherever the lens is, the top edge of your image is a little bit lower than that.
Uh-huh.
Now, only 3 inches, so, that's not so much. But what that basically means is if you were to put the lens at the same height as the lowest portion of your ceiling fan, then it should clear that just fine.
Yeah, your screen should be 3 inches lower than that.
Yeah, the screen will be 3 inches lower than that. So looking at his photos, we're only eyeballing it from the photos he sent, but that looks like that should actually be okay, right? If you had the top edge of the screen just 3 inches below the lowest port of that fan, you want to get rid of that little chain hanging down or swing that over to the wall, right? Extend the chain and swing it over the wall so the chain isn't hanging down because you get a shadow of the chain otherwise.
No, you just cut it. That's what I did with mine. You just cut it so that it's just barely, hanging down there. You're gonna.
Yeah, but as long as you get that chain out of the way, I think that should work. So
yeah.
And
by the way, I looked into really short ceiling fans, really short ones. They're super expensive.
Yeah.
They're ridiculously expensive. Ceiling fans in general, I think, that's a kind of a crock for something that I think should be $15 worth of parts. They sure cost a lot of money. He says he could, if necessary, take down the ceiling fan and move it to a different location on the ceiling that would be out of the way of the projector. That would also allow him to mount his projector close to the screen, which, according to Projector Central, would also give him a brighter image.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be beneficial and worth moving his ceiling fan? I'm going to say no.
So that's a pretty big ordeal to move a ceiling fan.
Not only that, it is a cost that you're going to have to that you're taking out of your budget there. Number one.
Yeah.
Number two, and more importantly, I think your whole point here is that you're not going to be using this during the day.
Right.
You're using it at night, right?
Yeah, because he's still got the TV for during the day.
Got the TV during the day. The ceiling fan doesn't matter there. You're using this at night, which means having a little bit extra brightness. What does it get you? Probably not a lot.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's worth it. So he asks, which is a good screen to buy? It seems as though motorized screens are all too expensive for his budget.
Mm-hmm.
So he's perfectly fine with a manual pull-down screen. So, manual pull-downs. I don't know that I've ever shopped for those, so I don't know. We usually go silver ticket and the other one.
Yeah, they don't seem to have a manual pull-down right now that they're offering. So
what's the other one we usually
Elite screens.
Are they? Do they have one?
Yeah, they have one called the Manual B. The 120-inch size is $230. So $230 plus $750. We're still under $1,000. We've left you $20 to get a ceiling mount, which is coming up. But it'll be fine.
All right. So yes, what color and gain should he go for? You should go for white.
Yeah, you only have one choice if you get that Manual B from Elite Screens.
I was gonna say,
white.
Is you're gonna be stuck with what they have. Yeah. And let me see if I can figure it out real quick before you tell me what it is. Blah 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 blah. I don't see it. Wait. It is.
Should be right there, right beside it.
I'm scrolling.
It should be right at the. It's the first thing under screen material.
It just says Max White B. Screen material is durable and easy to clean.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I know, but what is the gain?
Oh, what is Max White?
Yeah.
It's a 1.0 gain screen. It's a Unity gain screen.
Oh, okay. So you should get a white 1.0. Yeah. That's what we recommend.
Yeah.
Because you have literally zero options. Unless you want to go custom, in which case you're going to need more than $1,000 for the screen alone. So he asked, what is a good, inexpensive projector ceiling mount?
So the HT2050, it's not a heavy projector. I think it's under 7 pounds or under 8 pounds or something like that. It's not big. It's not heavy. Quite literally anything is going to be fine. I would go to Monoprice. They have a $7 mount. So that'll work.
Dude, $750 and you're going to mount it to a $7 thing.
What do you need? You need a piece of metal with some screw holes in it. That's all you need.
I don't care. That is ridiculous.
They have one that'll hold 50 pounds. That's $15. How about that instead? A little bit more adjustable.
What are you attaching it to? You attach it to you got to attach it to something like a beam, right? It can't just go into the drywall. I bet
Well,
you could for 7 pounds. The
Yeah, you
projector
probably-
mount might weigh more than that.
Like if you use the molly bolts into the
Yeah.
ceiling, that'll
Yeah.
hold it just fine. But yeah, I mean, better if you can put it into a stud for sure. But no, I mean that's all you need. Silver Ticket does have inexpensive ceiling mounts too, but I think theirs are like $17 or $20. So why do that? Mono price $15 or $7. You can get one for $7. Fine. For this projector, fine.
I don't know, dude. I don't know.
Okay, go for the $15 one.
I'm
We're
just
still
saying,
under
$15. It's a almost $1,000 projector. That's
Dude,
ridiculous.
the $15 one from Mono Price is rated to hold 50 pounds. If the HT2050
I know, but who's what's the labor cost on this thing? I mean, it's $15 and it's holding. It's I don't know.
all you need is a.
I'm
make
sure it's
your
fine.
own.
I'm
All you
just
need is a
telling
piece
you,
of
I would
metal
be
with
like,
some
I would be
screws.
examining that thing. 50 pounds, I'd hang one of my kids from it for a while.
It's Mono Price, man. They're not gonna junk you over. They don't want to get sued.
Yeah. Byron's Sharp TV has started randomly turning off sometimes and seems to be doing so more frequently. So he's begun the search for a new TV. And while he's just drawn to the LG OLEDs, the largest and somewhat affordable size is 65 inches.
No.
Byron would love a 40-degree field of view, but from his 9-foot seating distance, that would require a 90-inch screen, and that is in the cards. But a 75-inch Vizio P series is a possibility. So what would we choose, a smaller LG OLED or a larger Vizio P series?
That is
So-
a toss-up.
It is a toss-up. Now, I gotta be honest, why can't we just move our seat up just a tad? Is that, I mean,
To get to a 40-degree field of view with a
Are you gonna be-
65-inch screen, that's pretty close. Like maybe uncomfortably close.
I know. I was thinking the same thing. I'm like 65. Like my friend just bought a new TV, right? He went to Sam's, and it was the M series.
Yep.
From Vizio. It's 50 inches and stuff, and they sit like 9 feet away, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it's so small. And they're like, I think it's the same size as our other TV. I'm like, you only think that because you're so far away, you can't tell the difference. The other one was like a 46, and this one's like a 50. It was on sale. I mean, it was pretty cheap. It was the one with the tablet. So.
Okay,
it's a
so
little
the
older.
2016 model then, which is
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, which is fine. I'm like, that's what I told them. I'm like, listen, the 2017 models came out. It's everything. It's exactly the same.
So yeah, you'd have to sit 6.5 feet away from a 65-inch screen.
That's
to get a
only
40
moving
degree
it, that
field of
thing
view.
up like one
2.5
person worth.
feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
That's
no, I honestly think I would go with the Vizio.
I mean, size matters. And-
With me, I think that it's just you're never no. First of all, you're now going to be sitting too far away for the OLED resolution, whatever, blah blah blah.
Oh, the resolution doesn't
the
matter at
resolution's
all,
not going to make a difference, no matter which one you're sitting in front of, right? I mean, it's 4K. It's you're never
Yeah, I
going
mean,
to see
it's
the
it's
pixels.
all about the contrast and the black levels because honestly, they both get sort of similarly bright in the peak highlights.
Right.
The Vizio P series doesn't hit 1,000 nits either. The LG OLEDs don't hit 1,000 nits. The Vizio P series also does not hit 1,000 nits. So peak brightness kind of a wash. On the black levels, you know, the OLED does have the advantage, but the Vizio P series has 128 local dimming zones. It does a pretty darn good job. So yeah, I mean, what would I do? Gosh, if I were not willing to sit 6.5 feet away from a 65-inch screen, I would go for the larger size. The field of view to me matters
more
as long as I'm not like if it's a
huge quality difference.
a bad image versus a good image, then I'll go smaller and good versus big and bad. But this is big and good and smaller and even better, right?
Right.
So I think I'd go for the Vizio P series here in the 75-inch size, the bigger size.
I'd have to. I mean, if it was a little bit closer, I guess. If
Right.
it was a little bit closer in size range or whatever, I might justify it. But I think that's 10 inches, dude. It's like that's a lot. That's a lot of difference there. Since even the 75-inch screen size wouldn't get him to a desired field of view, what do we think about using a telescoping TV mount that could be pulled out from the wall to bring the TV closer for watching movies? Are there any downsides? I think that's a fantastic idea. You should totally do it. And if you can get one that telescopes 3 feet out, you can get the OLED.
That's a little unusual. Honestly,
that's not undoable. It's just going to be
Not
expensive. I've seen
undoable.
them. I've seen them.
The normal ones, what they call a full motion telescoping wall mount, give you about 18 inches, give you about 1.5 feet, which, if you actually work out the math, if he's sitting 9 feet away from the 75-inch screen and you pull it 1.5 feet closer, you're almost at exactly the 40-degree field of view that he wants. So the 75-inch size, keep your seat at 9 feet, but you get the telescoping mount, you can pull it 1.5 feet closer. It all works out exactly what you want. So I think that's the answer.
Ecobee, you're failing me. It is hot in here. I'm telling you. I agree. I'm a big fan of telescoping mounts in general. I mean, my parents have one. I've installed a couple here and there. I got no qualms about it. I mean, when you pull them out, you're going to see wires and you're going to see hardware. It suddenly
they usually give you like a channel to run the wires through, though, so it's not a mess. Because I mean, they don't want to pinch the wires when you push it back.
They don't, and that's right. But it's still, you're going to still see hardware and stuff. So it's going to look like, and you're going to do what everybody does. Okay, except for my parents, because my parents are neurotic. But you're going to pull the TV out and you're going to leave it there, and it's going to be there like forever. Occasionally somebody are like, oh, put your TV back and make the house look nice. We're cleaning up, right? No, most of the time the TV is going to be out and staying out. I mean, it's just going to be the way it is, unless you have to like move it to get around the thing. My parents are very like everything goes back exactly where it goes. Everything's labeled. It's sort of a thing. So that stuff goes away. So just be prepared for that. Be prepared for that. But I think they're great. Especially if you have it in a room and then you want to be in a different room, but still want to watch some TV and you can, pull it out and turn it. Yeah, that's great. That's great. It's fantastic. Yeah. And some of them tilt.
Yep.
You can lie on the floor, look up at the thing as it hovers above your head. You're like, wow, it's like being in the front row of a movie theater. All right. Bobby is struggling with the final decision about what to do with his projection setup. 2 weeks ago, Rob and Lee suggested sticking with the Epson 5040 UB, mounting it as far back as physically possible. So it's just under 10 feet from lens to screen due to the 12-foot length of the room, whatever. Anyways, he's using a 100-inch diagonal, 87-inch wide screen and simply sitting 9 feet away from the screen instead of 11 feet to get the larger field of view that he prefer. All right, so he can move his seats. Look at that.
Well, that's what his question is, because that was our suggestion. You don't have to sit 11 feet. Just move 2 feet closer. You get the field of view that you want with the screen that fits. So that was our suggestion.
Right. So while Bobby appreciates the advice, he occasionally needs to use his theater room as a guest room with an inflatable mattress. So he's thinking he needs to maintain enough floor space and the closer seating distance might not be possible. So should just forget about the 2.35:1 content being wider than the he's one of these guys. 16:9 content and go with the 92 to 100-inch screen, 16:9 screen. Call it a day, or should he consider a different projector with a shorter field throw distance so he can create a larger image? Okay. Dude, I'm going to be, this is real talk here from Tom. Real talk from Tom. Did you hear what you just said? Because I hear this all the time, and it's not just about home theater. It's about everything in life. I hear it constantly. Like, I'll be talking to people, and they're like, oh, we're looking for a house. Oh, that's great. What are you looking for? Well, we can't get anything with stairs. Like, why? You got a phobia of stairs? No, we have a young child. Does your young child got a phobia about stairs? Like, no. We're just afraid you won't have any stairs because you might fall down them. You think he's going to be the kind of kid that falls down the stairs for the rest of his life? You think he might figure it out after the first time he falls down the stairs? I mean, don't make a purchase or don't make a decision based on something that could happen every once in a while or may happen, okay? I might have to use... My home theater is exactly the same as yours. Every once in a while, I need to use it as a bedroom. And you know what I do? I move the couch.
Yeah, I mean, that was my question. I'm like, are you bolting your chairs to the floor? Like, I mean,
is it happening every day? Yeah. Is it happening every day? If it's happening every day, it is a bedroom, in which case this is a real concern. If it happens twice a year, you're telling me it's too much trouble to move a couch twice a year?
Yeah,
I don't believe it.
Didn't totally make why must you maintain space for a mattress at all times?
Right,
like that didn't add up to me. I mean,
if this is important to you, is it important enough that you will consider taking the time out of your day twice a year, maybe 3 times, to move a couch, and then a couple of days / weeks later, moving it back again? Yeah, I mean, it's literally that's what it is.
My advice to you, Bobby, either way is get a 100-inch screen. Because, I mean, a 100-inch screen, totally, normal size. Everybody sells a 100-inch screen.
Right.
Just get a 100-inch screen, you put it up, sit where you want to sit. I mean, you might be forced to sit a little bit farther away, not quite have the field of view that you want, but that's the biggest screen that you could put in here with the projector's throw distance. If you step down to a projector that's less expensive than the 5040 UB and has a shorter throw, you're giving up all the HDR support, you're giving up the great black levels of that model, you're giving up the motorized lens thing that lets you have the two different size screens so that 2.35 to 1 can be wider than 16 by 9. Like you're giving up all the features that you wanted, all for the sake of 2 feet of seating distance. Like that doesn't make sense.
Dude,
to me.
how important is this air mattress? I tell you what, it's cheaper to do, and to doing with everything else you want to do. I mean, so if you factor in the cost of how much you're not going to like whatever you got because you know what you wanted and you didn't get it, if you factor in that cost as well, you could just buy yourself a smaller air mattress, like custom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Get
a twin instead of a queen.
Something like that. So I would encourage you to rethink this whole I must have a bunch of dead space on my floor for an invisible mattress that only lives there once or twice a year. I would rethink that. Next, he asks, is there such a thing as sitting too close to a screen? Could someone sit 5 feet from a projection screen and have that look okay? 5 feet from how big is the screen?
How big is the screen? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there is such a thing as sitting so close that you start seeing individual pixels.
But it depends on the size of the screen. I mean, if you got like a lot of your phones these days are all basically 1080p or very close to it, right? Mm-hmm. And you take your screen and you're definitely within 5 feet. And if you aren't within 5 feet, you can't see it at all. So you're like, I can't see what's on that phone. Could you bring it over here a little bit closer? So, I mean, if you're talking about a 100-inch screen, yeah, 5 feet's too close. I mean, I'm at 5 feet. I mean, if you're talking 120 inches, maybe 140, 5 feet is way too close. You're going to start seeing pixels. You're going to see all kinds of crazy things.
Yeah, I mean, based on the human anatomy where it's possible. So let's say you had a white dot, a black dot, and a white dot all next to each other. If each of those dots fills up 1 arc minute of your vision, which is 1/60th of a degree of your vision, then you should be able to make that out as a white dot next to a black dot next to a white dot. That's sort of where our visual acuity limits itself. So if you took that and you said, okay, I'm going to have a white pixel next to a black pixel next to a white pixel, at 5 feet away, you could have a 40-inch diagonal screen if it's 1080p, or you could have an 86-inch diagonal screen if it's 4K, if it's 2160p. So 86-inch screen in 4K from 5 feet away before you'll be able to see white dot, black dot, white dot. Now that still is not the screen door effect. The screen door effect is where you see the grid of structure in between the pixels. Well, think about that. If you're going to see the grid, then the grid has to start filling something close to 1 arc minute of your vision, which means you're even closer than that to start seeing the screen door effect. So is it possible to sit too close? Yes, it is possible. Well, unless you don't care about screen door effect, but you got to get darn close to a big screen when you're talking 4K resolutions. So,
and honestly, there are people out there who have vision problems who get a lot closer than 5 feet because they just literally cannot see it. I've told the story before, but I had a guy come over and he had never been able to play Rock Band or anything like it before, because he couldn't see the screen, because every screen he was been involved with was normal size, 42 inches, something like that, right? A big one might have been 50 inches, and I had, I think, 82 at the time or something like that, and he was up, he was off to the side of the screen, but inches away from the screen so that he could see it.
Right.
Was he too close? Not for him, he wasn't. For you, probably, but not for him. So about a month ago, Bobby asked us for in-wall speaker suggestions, and we pointed him towards Outdoor Speaker Depot. In the meantime, his wife bought him a pair of Klipsch R14 bookshelf speakers and an RC25 center for his birthday. That was nice of her.
Yeah, very nice.
Is that what you wanted? I mean, did she just randomly pick some speakers? Or did you say, hey, if you're going to get some speakers, these are the one? I'm just curious. Anyways, so now he is trying to decide what to do. He could still get the Outdoor Speaker Depot in-wall and in-ceiling speakers for his surround and in-ceiling speakers. Would that sound okay with his front 3 Klipsch speakers? Buy the slightly larger, this is B, or 2, buy the slightly larger R15 bookshelf speakers, move the R14s to the surround positions, maybe go for the Klipsch Quintet speakers as his overheads. 3, Just add Klipsch quintet speakers for all the remaining positions. 4, get the Klipsch R14 surround speakers that are a half moon shape and meant to be wall mounted. And 5, something else he hasn't thought of. What should he do? All right. You probably shouldn't go with the outdoor speaker stuff.
Well, I mean efficiency-wise, they're actually not a problem because this series of Klipsch, these are the smaller ones. These are like the 4.5-inch driver.
Yeah.
And they're in the 90 to 92 dB efficiency range, which actually
isn't that bad.
Yeah, the series that we like from Outdoor Speaker Depot is similar. It's like 92 dB efficient. So you don't have this huge efficiency mismatch. Like some of Klipsch's speakers are like 98 dB efficient, and then you try to match them with a normal speaker that's like 86 dB efficient, and you have yourself a problem because the trim levels in your receiver might not even be able to compensate for that, or they're sort of maxed out.
Right.
You know, and that's not something that you normally want to do. But here, the efficiencies aren't that different. So it could work. Now, how well they're going to timbre match, that's something.
See, that's where I'm like, you know what? Once you go with Klipsch, you gotta kind of stick with Klipsch. The overhead speakers, I'm not as concerned about.
Yeah.
But the surrounds,
I guess. I mean, this is a situation where I wouldn't be strongly against going for the in walls and in ceilings that you wanted originally, because all the other options he's talking about are on wall or on ceiling.
He doesn't want that.
Well, that wasn't his original idea. I mean, this is a small room. It's only 12 by 12.
Yeah.
So
I mean, again, which begs the question: why are we with Klipsch speakers that, you know?
Yeah, but these are the small ones that aren't.
I understand.
That's not a bad choice for this room size at all.
I'm gonna say go with 4. Get the Klipsch R14 surround speakers that are half moon shape and meant to be wall mounted, and then get the outdoor speaker ones for your overheads. That's
for
what
your
I'm
overheads.
Say. That's what I'm gonna say.
I could back getting Klipsch speakers that can go on your wall that match your current ones for the surround positions.
Right.
And then go in the by the way, it's the MK series from Outdoor Speaker Depot that I like. Yeah, I could back that play. I'd be down with that. Yeah, that makes sense. I would maybe try to steer you clear of going with the Klipsch quintets. Those are basically computer speakers, let's be honest. I mean, they're compact home theater speakers, but they're not the same design. They don't even really have a horn. I'd try to you'd end up with quite a high crossover to the like 150 hertz crossover on those. I'd try to steer you away from that. Yeah, I can back Tom's suggestion there. That makes a lot of sense. So it's a mix. The on-wall surrounds from Klipsch, get a nice match for your surrounds, and then go for your in-ceiling speakers from Outdoor Speaker Depot, because that's not going to matter so much.
So lastly, he asks, should his surround speakers be directly to his sides, or should they be a little bit behind him?
He's doing 5.2.4.
Right. I mean, I would put them a little bit behind me.
Yeah, a little bit behind.
They don't have to be that far, like, 6 inches, 12 inches.
Yeah, 6 inches a foot.
Yeah.
There you go. If you're going to be moving your seat a little bit forward, even easier.
Even easier. But move them at the same time. I mean, anyways. Okay, Fred. Here comes Fred. This comes from Facebook. Fred went to the AMC theater with Atmos, and they seem to also have butt kickers in their seats, and he enjoyed it.
And they actually are a butt kicker. They're a butt kicker brand.
Are they really? I thought maybe he just had a kid sitting behind him who was kicking them at the opportune time.
Right. No, they actually made an announcement. That's one that they've partnered up with Butt Kicker. They put actual butt kicker tactile transducers into some of their seats.
So Fred says he has a single SVS PB13 Ultra right now. He could get a second PB13 Ultra, or he could put that money towards butt kickers. What do we think would be better? Well, for evenness of bass throughout your room, I think a second PB13 Ultra would be better. But in this case, you're not complaining about that. You just want the butt kicking part of it, in which case it's a heck of a lot cheaper to go with the butt kickers. And I would say, as much as I think it's a terrible idea to have those things, you liked it, so you should do it. That's
I mean, really the question is, do you care about multiple seats in your theater? Because he didn't say that.
No.
If you care about multiple seats in your theater, then you need to go for the second PB13 Ultra, because that isn't about getting louder. That's about getting more uniform.
Right.
If you're like, hey, there's really only one seat I care about, where I have my single PB13 Ultra placed right now. It sounds good in my seat. I don't care that it doesn't sound as good in the seat next to me. It sounds good in my seat, and I want to add more tactile feeling, then go for the butt kicker. That's the answer.
Yeah, this is one of the rare cases where I will suggest a tactile transducer. If you've experienced it and you like it, I think it's a fantastic idea. Okay, because that you're getting yourself something that you like, and you're not trying to recreate it. Like maybe I should get 15 subwoofers and make my room do that. I'm like, well, you could, but the bass will be too loud. I mean, the easiest way to kind of make that happen is actually to build a resonating platform underneath your couch that resonates with your subwoofers at certain frequencies, but it's not going to give you the same experience that you got with the butt kicker. It's going to be different and annoying, I think. But maybe you'd like that too. But you will definitely get what you want if you get the thing that did the thing that you liked. I mean, it makes perfect sense. I drove a Ferrari. I really like the Ferrari. Should I buy a Ferrari? Should I buy a Honda? Well, if you can afford the Ferrari, you should get the Ferrari. But most people would say it's unnecessary for getting groceries. Eric is using a Denon AVR X1200W Pioneer Andrew Jones speakers and dual HSU VTF3 Mark V subwoofers. He's been pretty happy with his purchase, but he's finding that he'd like a bit more detail and particularly better dialogue clarity. Mm-hmm. This is important here. Dynamics, imaging, delineation, he'd like to prove all of it a bit if he could. He has a budget total of about $600 all in. So he's considering the front 3 speakers for now, and here are the contenders he has in mind. Chain speakers, which are I'm not going to read them, doesn't matter.
Yeah, just the brands.
HSU, Ascend, HTD, and Emotiva. These are the speakers he's considering. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any strong opinions on thoughts on which would be best? Is there an option that isn't on his list that would be better than all of them? I have some very strong opinions about what you should do, but I'm going to save it to the end here. Because first of all, I'm going to answer your question, which is about these speakers. First of all, HSU and Ascend are solid offerings. Okay, let's just get those out of the way. Got no problems with those bad boys right there. I think those HSU speakers are just dumbest looking speakers in the history of speakers. They are so ugly.
Those are the CC8s that you really dislike. They have their horn loaded ones as well. So
is that
he's mentioning the horn loaded ones. Those are the models, the horn loaded ones.
I thought I looked it up and I thought the HB, I guess it is a HB, I don't know. Anyways, they're dumb. Yeah,
the H ones are fine. The H stands for horn, so that's
okay. Yeah. That's fine as long as it's not that one with the tweeter that looks so.
Yeah, no, the
weird.
CC8 is the concentric driver. That's the CC concentric. So
no, I'm thinking of something else. Anyways, Chain Audio. This is a company that pops up over and over and over again. I thought they sold subwoofers. Let's just start with that.
That's where they started when they were a different name. They were Chase at the time.
Chase for a while. There are all these different names across. And we actually talked about this. I think it was after the podcast one day in one of our hangouts. And we were like talking about all the different names. And people order and some people get speakers and other people don't. And, just stay away. Just stay away from that company and that person who runs it because it's not. It's not something you want to get involved with.
Their track record of customer satisfaction has been poor. So.
And chasing your name so that you can get new customers is not exactly step one in the ethical book of how to operate a business. HTD is a company I had heard of, but I didn't really recognize them, so I looked them up, and my BS detector went off like boop, 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 when I started reading their website. Now, I'm telling you, Rob's probably going to be able to tell you some real things about these companies, but I read their website and went, wow, this smells awful. This smells so fishy. Like, there's so many little, like the terminology they use, the way they describe their speakers, the kind of adjectives they use, and not only that, I've read so many of these things over the years, and I talked to so many people and so many companies, and had them try to sell me on their stuff, all the way from really super high end people down to entry level people, and this one just smelled like I don't trust what you're selling at all.
I mean, they're a reseller of the Chinese-made speakers that are stamped out. They resell them, and the is it a folded ribbon tweeter or a planar tweeter, whatever it is, some kind of planar type tweeter. It's not a good one. Yeah. It's not a good sounding one.
And I don't know anything about these Emotiva speakers. These are the Airmotives?
These are the new ones, the Airmotives. Audioholics wasn't hugely hyped on their performance.
Out of all these speakers, I thought these looked the best. The Emotivas. I thought they had the best aesthetics.
Apparently, they're not super linear. They're a little bit, and they're that 4 ohm thing because of course they want you to buy an Emotiva amp to go along with them, which doesn't seem like it's the plan. So yeah, I mean, my feeling, like the Pioneer Andrew Jones speakers for the price, I don't think you can get speakers that are much better. To me, the next logical, like, this is a clear step up, and it's still not too expensive. To me, it is the Ascend speakers, that the SE series. I think that Tweeter is a cut above. They're very, very linear. They're not pretty. That's the only thing they don't give you. They're not pretty, but all the money that didn't go into aesthetics just went into quality parts. That would be my choice out of them. But there are some other options. AVRant Audio, their Intimus series, particularly in their Stealth Black finish, which is, again, basic flat black, but that keeps the price down to something that you could afford. They have a really nice center at AVRant, that 5C center, really good center speaker, so that could be worth it. NHT also, you'd be looking at their Super Series, but that, again, very neutral speakers if you want a sealed design instead. That would be an option there. One other way that you could come at this, since you said dialogue clarity is an important thing, is you could put pretty much all your budget just into a new center speaker. Save up to get front, left, rights later, but just upgrade your center right now. If you wanted to do that, you could maybe look at some higher end. You could go to that KEF Q series. You could go to NHT's C series. It's a $500 center, so that's your whole budget just going to the center.
Right.
But that's a really good center speaker from NHT, is that C series LCR center. So those are some options. But if you want to get the front three, I mean, I'd be very happy going Ascend. I'd be happy going HSU as well if you want the horn-loaded design. I think those are good speakers. Or I might go AVRant, because they're very good as well.
I can get behind all of these, for sure. All of these sound like I'm going to make a suggestion that I think Rob would 100% agree with, and I'm wondering if their speakers are really the problem.
There is that. Well, I will say that Pioneer Center, not fantastic. So it could be the speaker partially to blame.
But I want to know a little bit more about your setup and where you're sitting and how things are bouncing around your room. Because you've got a nice subwoofer. Your receiver's entry level, but perfectly reasonable. The speakers themselves are entry level, but very good, especially for the price. So I'm wondering, where you're sitting.
Is your seat right against your back wall with nothing absorptive behind your head?
That's exactly what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that your problems here are your room.
Could be.
More likely than your speakers. Now, I could be completely way off base. I could be. But without knowing, I'm going to ask a question, because you can do some quick tests. I mean, you can get some absorptive material, whatever that might be. You can literally just put a blanket behind your head. Yeah. Right? You can just put that behind. If you're right on the wall there, you could just put that behind your head and see if that makes a difference. If not having the sound, basically ricochet off the back wall and hit your ears, a millisecond after it hit the first time, and have everything sound a little bit weird because of it, that could make a huge difference. Pulling or changing your location of your seat, doing some treatment at the first reflections, all that stuff, and all of that stuff. Like, you can treat this entire room with GIC. I don't know how big your room is, so maybe I'm not being correct here, but you can make a big difference acoustically in your room with GIC acoustic treatments, well under $600.
Yeah. I mean, if let's say your seat isn't against the back wall, but your whole room is highly reflective, or you got a hard floor and no rug in between the speakers and you, all of those things could be the culprit for your dialogue intelligibility not being as good as you want it to be. I mean, I will say there are speakers that are more detailed and a little bit better than the Pioneer, so it's not that either. I'm not saying it couldn't possibly be the speakers. It could be, but your room could definitely be it could be a case where you get the more expensive, better speaker, still doesn't give you what you want because the room was actually the bigger problem.
That's what I'm concerned about. I don't want you to go out and buy yourself a brand new $600. Just say you go with the KEF one or whatever the one you said, the $500 speaker center channel. You go like, dude, I still don't understand what this guy's saying. All right. That's why we're talking about this right now. Yeah. We want to make sure that when you make the difference will be something that's audible. And if it's your room is messing everything up, then buying bigger speakers doesn't help. Just like when people come to us and they're asking, like, I would like to get the amp for my speakers because blah, 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 blah. I'm like, that's fine, but it's not going to make any difference. And then they're like, I got a new amp. It doesn't make any difference. I'm like, I told you it wasn't going to make any difference. So we want to make sure that we can tell you, yes, buy this center channel or buy these speakers, and yes, it will make a difference. We can't tell you that that's going to happen without knowing more about your room. Don will be moving into a new house that is currently under construction. He will have a media room on the top floor that will be 18 feet 2 inches long, 15 and a half feet wide, and 10 feet high. which is roughly around 2,800 cubic feet. There's a door on the back wall. In the rear right corner, and a window in the rear left corner that he will cover using blackout drapes. So this is a sealed room with light control.
Nice.
He wants to continue using his 65-inch Panasonic Plasma. He already owns 5.2 speaker system with the PSB Stratus Gold Towers, PSB Center, PSB Dipole Bipole surrounds, and dual SVS SP2000 subs, all powered by AVRant's SR7010 AV receiver. Groovy. He'll have acoustic treatments, plus carpet on the floor. He wants to pre-wire the room for during construction, but he will have the attic space above for future access, if it's ever needed. He has 2 recliners that are his primary seats. He also has a sofa that will go in the room, but doesn't really care where that gets placed. All right. Well, let's staple it to the ceiling then. All right. He didn't care. Nice. Wouldn't that be awesome? You walk in. Is that the couch on your ceiling? Yeah, man. Guest seating right up there. Got seatbelts. 5-point harness. All right. He wants to set up his theater for Atmos. So first things first, where should he put his 2 primary seats? The recliners. Third of the way into the room from the back wall.
For a 65-inch screen, though?
Well, that's where you should put them for the best sound and stuff like that.
Or a third from the front wall. Huh?
You could do a third from the front.
Lots of space
now,
behind you.
Wait, he said he wants to keep using this thing. He didn't say he didn't want to ever use anything else.
There is that.
Can we drop a screen down in front of it when you want to? Can we do it? Can we plan that you're going to wall mount that thing and it's going to be super small and far away from you and annoying until you get your projector set up, and then your wife will be like, "Why did we do this to begin with?" And we're like, "I know, honey, right? I'm brilliant." Yeah. So you would be a third of the way into the room. If you're going to have a 65-inch screen, maybe you're a third of the way in the room from the front wall with the screen mounted to the front wall. If you're going to have a projector set up someday and would like to plan for that, third of the way in the room from the back wall, and then have your projector screen on the drop down in front of your wall-mounted flat panel.
Yeah, it is a little bit tricky. Like I would probably divide your room into fifths.
Yeah.
Because it works out. So instead of dividing into thirds, I'd divide it into fifths. And then if you're going to be continuing to use the 65-inch screen the way that he's sort of shown it in his diagram with that, basically wall mounted, right. Then I would sit 2/5 from the front of the room away from that TV, which is about 7.5 feet?
I guess. I don't know. I need to do the math.
Roughly. Yeah. Or if you are thinking, okay, maybe I will end up with a projection screen at some point, then you could sit 3/5 from the front, 2/5 from the back. Because acoustically, that'll work out nicely, and screen size-wise, it'll work out nicely too. So I will leave it to you, because if the plan is to just the 65-inch TV, that's it, never going to add a projection screen, then I would sit 2/5 from the screen, 2/5 of the length of the room.
You can put the sofa behind you on a riser or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. That lets you put the sofa behind you as a second row. It could be 6 feet behind you. You'd still have 3.5, 4 feet of walkway behind that. So you enter into the room, you got 3 to 4 feet, you got the couch, you got 6 feet in front of the couch, you got your chairs, and then that leaves you 7.5 feet from the front wall, roughly.
Right.
That'll work out for a 65-inch screen.
That's fine.
Or you can put the sofa on the back wall, move your recliners back to the 3/5 position, and put in a projector screen. That couch shouldn't be on that side wall the way you have it. I don't think. I think that'll look weird. Yeah, he's just like, that was temporary placement.
Yeah. I would throw that on the back wall behind you someplace.
Yeah,
behind you. Yeah. So where should he position his dipole surround speakers, and should he purchase and add surround back speakers? If so, where should these go? And specifically, how high should the surround and surround back speakers be mounted? All right. So as we said with the last question or two ago, I don't remember, surround speakers should be a little bit behind you and a little bit up. I know that Dolby now says they're supposed to be ear height, but I think that's not. I don't like it.
Yeah, this does all depend on nailing down your seating position first. Yeah. Hopefully we've given you basically 2 choices, and it depends on what your plans are for the screen. So that should be easy enough for you to decide. And then once you know that, your surround speakers go straight to your sides, and then maybe about a foot back from that. Mm-hmm. So basically where your seats are, just a tiny bit behind. And how high they should be, what you want is for the tweeter of the surround speaker to have a clear line of sight to every listener. which
Right.
normally means if you have, like, you're going to have these two recliners side by side. So let's say you're sitting in the left recliner and you're looking at the left side surround speaker. You want the tweeter of that left side surround speaker to be able to clear your head and reach the person sitting to your right. You don't want you directly blocking the tweeter from the person sitting to your right. It doesn't
Right.
have to be very high to do that normally.
Yeah, a couple
You know,
feet, maybe.
4.5 feet, the tweeter 4.5 feet off the ground. That usually works out.
Then surround back speakers. Now,
I think you should in this case, because we're
I
telling
think
you to
so,
have
too.
your primary seats a good way, either 3/5 or 2/5 into this room. Either way, you've got lots of space behind you. I think surround backs would be a good idea here.
right, and I agree with that. Again, they're going to be the same sort of thing. You want them to be able to clear everything. So if your couch, your back couch is raised up and people are sitting there, they got to be able to clear, those speakers got to be able to clear their heads to hit the people in the front row, which will be
That's right.
you. If they're on the back wall, I mean, if the couch is on the back wall, well, then it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, so that might be the tweeters 5.5, 6 feet off the ground. They could be a little bit higher if that back row is sitting a bit higher.
Yeah. So when I guess we're
I mean, where exactly should they go on the back wall? I mean, they should
We're gonna
be
talk about
about
that next.
the same width apart from each other as your front speakers are. That's
Well, they
that's
should
where your
be,
surround-
according to Dolby, they should be exactly, and that's what it comes up
Exactly.
to now. He gets a bit confused when we talk about Atmos ceiling speaker locations. Can we clearly describe where they should go? All right, so before we get started with all this, the way that Dolby now says that you should set all these speakers up is it's actually very easy. So you've got your front, left, and right speakers, okay?
Yep.
Your front, left, right speakers are going to be wider than your screen, usually, unless you have some sort of massive screen and you've got your speakers behind them and it's acoustically transparent and all that. You do not have such a setup. So your speakers are going to be at some width. Depending on how far back you're sitting, that width may change. It's so that you are, some sort of triangle. You don't want them inside of your couch. You want them to be far enough apart where you get some good stereo separation. All right. Then, every other speaker that is an Atmos speaker or a speaker that is behind you should be in a line from from the main speakers. So any speaker that's on the ceiling, you should be able to draw a line from your main speaker, and it should make like an arc around you. Basically, it goes over you. So like the speaker, not where it's facing. So if you toe it in towards you, that won't count. You want where it is in the room. If it's 3 feet off the side wall, then the speaker that's overhead should be 3 feet off the side wall. The surround back speaker should be 3 feet off the side wall. That's where it should be placed.
Now,
so they're all
because
in a line.
Because of a ceiling joist, because of a window, because of a door, if because of one of those things you have to move it a little bit, closer together to each other or a little bit farther apart, that's fine.
It's fine.
Don't drive yourself insane about that.
No.
But if you're starting with the idea, how far apart are my front, left, and right speakers from each other? The overhead speakers, the surround back speakers are that same distance apart. That's your starting point. If you have to adjust it a little from there, that's fine. But that's the starting idea.
Yeah. So that's what.
And then as far as how far in front of you, how far behind you,
it's about angles.
It's all about angles at that point. Now,
He's got a
Dolby's
10-foot
recommending
ceiling, so it's going to be a little bit different for him than it is for most people.
Yeah, Dolby's recommending 45 degrees. 45 degrees elevation in front of you, 45 degrees elevation behind you. Call that top, front, top rear. That's their number one recommendation, which since you have a 10-foot ceiling, that would actually put you more like 7 feet in front of you, 7 feet behind you, which is a little bit far maybe. Now, 7 feet behind you might actually be really nice because then it would probably be behind your second row of seats as well.
Right.
So you call them top rears, it's going to sound correct for your back seats, it's going to sound correct for your primary seats up front. But essentially 5 to 7 feet in front of you. So go make a line straight from the top of your head straight up to the ceiling. Go 5 to 7 feet in front of you. That's your top fronts. Go 5 to 7 feet behind you. That's your top rears. And that's it. That's all there is to it.
Right. Oh, look at that. I'm sorry. I just saw your note here about the fact that it's 10 foot. I actually remember that all by myself. Thank you, Rob. Look at me being smart. He's planning to put his two subwoofers in diagonally opposite corners. Will his dual SVS SB2000s still be a good choice for this room size? SB 2000, what is it, 2,800 square feet?
2,800 cubic feet.
Cubic feet, sorry.
SB 2000s.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Good choice.
Good, that'll be just fine.
That's a medium-sized room.
You are golden.
Yep.
So, and they'll look nice. Though, I mean, you could put them on side walls too. You've got the space, right? I mean, where's this diagonally opposite corners though? Is what I'm worried about.
Well, it can't be in front of the door, so I'm assuming it's the rear left.
By the window, I guess.
Rear left below the window, front right. That'll work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'm scrolling. That's it for him. All right, good. Will's room is roughly 3,500 cubic feet in air volume, but is L-shaped. So even though he's using 4 subwoofers, 2 Energy, 1 Dayton, and 1 Velodyne, and his Marantz SR6011 has Odyssey Multi-Q XC32 with sub-EQ, blah, 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 blah. HT, he's finding it a bit difficult to get truly uniform bass across all of his seats. I feel like I've seen this room before.
You have?
Seen this room before.
Yes.
All right, more than that, he's just interested in being able to measure and calibrate his system. He's heard about measurement mics like the Behringer 8000 or the U-Mic or the U-Mic 1, as well as Room EQ Wizard and Mini DSP, but can we spell it out for him? What will he need in order to measure and properly calibrate his 4 subwoofers?
Sure.
Yeah, we can calibrate it. Okay, first of all, Gene did that big, over at Audioholics, did that big thing about his room. Was it videos or was it articles?
No, that was an article. That was an article.
You need that. First of all, find that article, okay? And we'll put a link up on our website for that. He has an L-shaped room.
Yep.
Okay, so he has gone through everything you're going to go through. He didn't have a staircase. He does have a staircase, but it's got a door, so that's not a problem. But he's got an L-shaped room, so what he did. You can kind of look at that and say, this is what he did. I should do something similar.
It was painstaking the way Gene did it. It was painstaking.
But that, at least, you know they've got the same room as you, and you can kind of deal with it. Now, he's also got gazillion room treatments in that room. Yeah. I mean, Oralex came and treated his room, and it's just...
And he wound up with 5 subwoofers.
Yeah. So, well,
the way he did it. Yeah. Right. But there's actually now, because at the time Gene did that, we didn't know about this software.
Okay.
There's a piece of software that can totally help you out.
All right.
So we'll have the link for that. The link for it is a little bit hard to describe in words. So come to avrant.com. We'll have the link for it. But yeah, what they get you to do, so they recommend you get a U-Mic 1. So we're going to tell you get a calibrated one from Cross Spectrum Labs.
Right.
Because the increase in price is barely anything and you'll have a super accurate microphone. So get a U-Mic 1. Cross Spectrum Labs is also selling mini DSP units. So just order them both at the same time because they're not charging any extra. So get yourself a mini DSP and a calibrated U-Mic 1, both from Cross Spectrum Labs, and download Room EQ Wizard, which is free software. So that's the equipment that you need. Then, this does only run on Windows, but this software that we're talking about, what you do, they have the instructions, so follow their instructions.
Right.
And what I'm going to suggest is follow their instructions for a subs-only calibration, because they do also have one which is supposed to help you integrate your subs with your front main speakers, but that can be done in your AV receiver. You don't need your mini DSP to be doing that for you. So they have a procedure for subs only. So if you want to look up multiple subwoofer optimization software, it'll probably come up if you can't wait for that link to show up. But yeah, follow their instructions. What they'll get you to do is take individual measurements, one subwoofer at a time, and they'll get you to measure in multiple locations. And that's very important. So you're going to be using your U-Mic 1, you're going to measure one sub in multiple locations, measure your second sub in all those same locations, third sub, and so on. You'll have all those measurements, you plug it all into the software, and it is going to spit out a bunch of settings that they will tell you to plug into your mini DSP. Now, this is going to work just fine. The mini DSP has 2 inputs and 4 outputs. So it'll give you 4 sets of settings. You're going to use all 4 of those outputs. The one trick, and they mentioned this in the instruction for this software, but I'll mention it right here. You actually, since you have a AV receiver that can do independent subwoofer outputs, you don't want to use that. You want to tell your Marantz that you only have one subwoofer. Right. That's the trick. You actually want to tell it that you only have one subwoofer. You're going to take that one subwoofer output, plug it into your mini DSP. So there's going to be a second input that's just left blank. That's fine. The mini DSP is going to do all the work of putting in all these settings that this software came up with to program your 4 individual subwoofers and feed all of them from the mini DSP. That's about all there is to it. It does all the painstaking trial and error stuff that Gene did manually with graph paper. The software takes care of doing that for you. It's much easier.
Now let's back it up just a little bit, because you spun through this, and he did say let's go through this in detail. So,
Yep.
one thing that we mentioned very quickly was getting a calibrated mic from Cross Spectrum Labs. Now,
Yep.
Cross Spectrum Labs has been a friend of this podcast for a long time, and I've got no problems recommending him. This is Herb, who's over there. What they do, so you understand what you're buying. You're asking you have to get the UMic 1 to use this program, right? The UMic 1 is made in batches, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is made in batches, and they're tested periodically and everything else. And there's probably some calibration files out there. What is that? You plug in this kind of response curve, like a correction curve, into RoomEQ Wizard. It's very easy to do. You just say, what mic do you have? I got this one. And it's like, do you have a correction file? And it's very easy to do. They'll walk you through it. What Herb does is he takes and buys a UMic 1 for you. He takes that mic, he compares, he measures a sweep or a frequency response or whatever he does with his professionally calibrated like $10,000 microphone,
Mm-hmm.
right? So he knows what sound is actually should be measured with this microphone. This microphone tells him this is the true graph of this thing. Mm-hmm. Then he takes and measures the exact same thing with the exact same location with a UMic 1, the one he purchased for you. He then takes and says, okay, this is the graph I got with my professionally calibrated, absolutely 100% accurate microphone. This is what I got with this UMic 1 I bought for my friend Will, right? So now I know the differences. I can calculate the differences. So he takes and calculates the differences and then makes an individual correction file just for that microphone.
Yeah.
The differences in price are so negligible as to be laughable. I mean, it's like what? $20, something like that? I don't know what it is. It's very cheap.
I don't even know if it's that much, yeah.
Last time I checked, I think $20 is being generous. But it really is. And you get a microphone that is calibrated specifically. That's it. You're not going off of something you downloaded from, AVS forums or something like that. It is a calibration file. Is it worth the extra money? Absolutely. I mean, I can't even believe this service exists, but this is a perfect example of why of how you can get yourself in the best possible. That's going to make this entire thing better. Anything that this program, and it's called MSO, which is multi-sub optimization, but that's what the program's called, MSO. Anything that MSO does is going to be better because you've got a mic that's calibrated. It is completely worth the cost, right? RoomEQ Wizard, there's tons of tutorials on that, on how to do it. This MSO page that we're going to send you to walks you through. It's a very long page, and it looks like it was made in MS-DOS in the days of
it's nothing
MySpace.
Fancy, but it's you just follow the instructions. That's all you need. So.
It is step by step, and it says, I like this part. Okay, and over here is where our form is. Don't post, because keep reading until you get to the end,
right?
Which I appreciate. So. It's going to be a pretty powerful program for you, and you should be able to run through this. I mean, going from start to finish. I mean, carve out a Saturday afternoon, I think.
Might be a little bit more. Let's carve out a weekend, because, this is your first time doing it.
First time doing it, you're going to download some stuff. There's a learning curve there and stuff like that. So contact Herb. And tell him that we sent you. And, let's know how this works out for you. Jonathan. The Journal of Acoustical Society of America published a study in which they measured 283 different headphones. They identified, I did not read this, I read the abstract. They identified 3 different headphone types: over-ear, on-ear, and in-ear. Well, so far their research is going smashingly. And a wide range of price points were included. The Olive and Welty target curve provided by Harman Research was used along with an ITU standardized dummy head and ear canal. So this is how they measured. They have a dummy head with a carved out whatever ear canal, and they put microphones inside the ear
inside
canal.
the dummy head.
So
That's
they
right.
put the headphones on the thing, and then they measured it.
And then Sean Olive and Todd Welty over at Harman, they've done a bunch of research. What they basically did is they took some known, very accurate speakers, probably the M2s from JBL Pro,
Right.
played sweeps from those in a real room and measured what the response was inside the dummy head's ear canal. And they're like, that's what an accurate speaker in a good listening room should look like on a graph when the measurement is taken from inside the ear. Then they use that compared to headphones, again with the microphones inside the ear, and said, okay, what should the headphone response actually be? Because it's not a flat line, right? You don't get just a flat linear line from a flat linear signal. There's some ups and downs because your ear canal completely changes the frequency response shape. So like, as long as the frequency response inside the ear canal is similar between the good speakers in a good room and the headphones, that should sound quite similar to our ear. And that's more or less what the research said. So this study is saying, okay, we think that research is good and well done, so we're going to use their target curve as the target we're trying to achieve, as that would be an accurate headphone as far as the study is concerned.
It's a little bit of a problem with that, but we'll go on. The study concluded that there was no correlation between the price of a given headphone and how closely it matched that target curve, the Olive and Welty curve. Although more expensive headphones tended to have less variance in the bass. On-ear headphones were all over the place on ear, while over-ear and in-ear were a little bit more consistent, and in-ears tended to produce louder bass on average than either over or on-ear. But again, price pretty much had nothing to do with any of it. Jonathan was not surprised at all to see plenty of expensive headphones that did not match the curve well, but he was surprised that quite a few cheap headphones weren't too far at all from the target curve, and the in-ears generally having louder bass also came as no surprise to Jonathan. So what do we think? Do we think this study is useful or trustworthy? Okay.
Well, I mean, we know just straight up that there are plenty of headphone manufacturers of all price ranges that are not even aiming for an accurate sound. That's not their goal. They're like, we want more bass than is actually accurate to the signal, or we want a smiley face curve so that you get lots of bass and lots of treble, or we want a hump in the mid-range so that voices really stand out.
V-Moto is a perfect example too.
Yeah.
Well-designed headphones, well-made, bulletproof. The dude who owns the company, who we interviewed on this podcast, he knows what he likes, and he wants to make headphones that he likes. Well, you know, it's not a flat curve. That's not this. The one thing that jumped out at me when I was reading this description here is that they went with the curve that was used with a different dummy head. It's not the same ear canal, right? The same shape.
I don't know if it was the same dummy head that was used at Harman that they used in this study. I'm not sure on that.
Yeah, that's the only thing I would say. That's the first thing that jumps out at me is like, if it's not the same dummy head, then using the same target curve, they should have taken whatever head, and really they should have taken, even if it was the exact same head, they should have taken that dummy head, put it in a really good room, run a frequency sweep, and use that. Because who knows what could have changed over time with this thing, dust or something in there. Who knows? It shouldn't have made any difference, but who knows? They should have done that. Or they should have at least done the comparison with like a control. Basically taken that head, put it in a good room, put it through, and say, yes, it's very close to this Olive and Welty curve. Therefore, we feel confident using it.
They didn't say that, but maybe they did. We're not can't say for sure either way.
Yeah. I'm not surprised at all. I mean, we've experienced this thing over and over and over again, where we see headphones that we are constantly surprised are so well. And yes, sometimes I think it's absolutely by design, and sometimes I think it's total luck. I think there's so many headphones. I'm not joking. There's so many headphones out there that somebody's gonna take a off the shelf, driver, throw it in a plastic enclosure that's just, whatever, and sell it for $20, and everybody's gonna be like, wow, this sounds really good. And they're like, really? It does? Oh, good. And then they, it doesn't last, for one reason or another. They have to change the driver, or maybe that batch of drivers was really good, but the next batch wasn't so good. All of that. So I'm not surprised at all. Yeah,
I mean, there seems to be they didn't really say it outright, but sort of just interpreting the way it was written, this almost assumption that if you're buying more expensive headphones, you, the purchaser, wants a more technically accurate sound. Because over at Harman, their conclusion was the closer you are to an accurate frequency response, in other words, a speaker that measures extremely linearly in an anechoic chamber, so it's true to the signal, and then you bring it into a good listening room that is not completely devoid of reflections, but one that doesn't have certain frequencies ringing way longer than others or something. So you put it into a good room, and in general, that's what listeners prefer, right? But to me, it's no surprise that isn't what every headphone manufacturer is aiming for at all. I'm like,
and not only
that to me is an odd assumption to make that is the goal, because I really don't think it is the goal on purpose.
Within manufacturers, they all have different lines whose whole
different
job whose job it is to sound different from other things that they've made.
If everyone sounded the same, then why would you choose one over the other?
That's right. Absolutely. And like Beats by Dr. Dre or whatever. I guess it's not by Dr. Dre anymore. But Beats, their goal was to make a headphone that looked good.
Yeah. Which doesn't really, but
well, it looked good enough. It was iconic enough that people wanted it, and we had lowercase letters on every single headphone that was out there for a long time. We're getting away from it now, but I still see tons of people with Beats, tons of them. So I don't know. Okay, he asked me if we think this study is useful or trustworthy. I think it's trustworthy enough. I mean, I'm comfortable. I read it.
As long as you understand what they were comparing. And
Do I think it's useful? It's not really. It's like, Well,
it's confirming something we essentially already knew. Right?
I mean, it's just not really all that useful, though. It's like, not all headphones sound the same. It is
useful in the sense of if someone just says more expensive headphones are always better than less expensive, well, you have to define what better is. In this case, they're saying closer to the Harman target curve. That is something I don't necessarily agree with.
Right.
Like I might like that because I like a very accurate, neutral, transparent sound, but that isn't everybody's preference.
Yeah.
So that's But it's true. You can't. I will absolutely agree. If we believe this study, and I do, you can't just say more expensive. Definitely, you're going to like it more.
No, I don't.
That is completely not the case.
No, because you can spend a lot of money on a lot of things that aren't nearly as good as things you can spend less money on.
Yeah.
I mean, we've shown that time and time again with a ton of stuff. TVs are a perfect example, man. You can spend a lot of money on a TV, and it's not going to be nearly as good as something you spend less on. Projectors are the same way. Rob from Perth, Australia. Not Rob from where you're from, Rob. Rob bought himself an LG C6 OLED TV. Yes, it is slightly curved, but Rob F, much like Rob H, doesn't want all of his 3D Blu-rays to be obsolete just yet. So with the C6 on the clearance, he picked one up for a great price. I hate the curve.
I can dig that.
I understand what you're saying, sir, and I don't disagree with you, but the curve.
He says it doesn't bother him, so that's okay.
If you sit in the right spot, I guess it wouldn't. Anyways, he also uses a 1080p BenQ projector, though, and his AV receiver is a Marantz SR6010, which seems will never be able to pass through Dolby Vision. He has an Oppo UDP 203 Ultra HD Blu-ray player, and the TV and the projector will never both be on at the same time. So how does he make sure that, one, no matter what, he gets lossless audio? Two, the OLED gets 4K HDR and Dolby Vision, and the BenQ projector gets 1080p.
Yeah.
That doesn't have two HDMI outputs on that thing?
It does, but the second one does not put out video at all. It's audio only.
Yeah. All right, you're going to need a splitter.
Yep.
I mean, that's what it comes down to. You're going to need a splitter.
Yep.
And you're going to have to hope that neither one of your displays is always like passively looking for a HDCP handshake, because that is the fly in the ointment. That is the thing that we will not know until you try it. So
now, even there's a workaround.
Yeah.
Because you can just manually go into the Oppo and say, "Hey, put out 1080p. I don't care what EDID information you're getting. Just put out 1080p." But that would be you manually doing that in the Oppo's menus every time. But at least it will work, right? So
You couldn't
There's
even
that.
see it to do it, though. I mean, you'd have to turn on the projector
turn on the
TV to see it to do it.
Yeah, you turn on the TV. Go
All right.
Opus
Okay,
menu,
what we're
say
talking
split-
about here, just so we're all clear and that we're all on the same page. All right, you're gonna need a splitter. All right,
Yeah.
so from your Oppo, you're gonna need a 2-1 majigger.
1 in, 2 out splitter.
Right.
And I'm going to recommend to you the one from Sewell because
Okay.
it's inexpensive, but it has the full 18 gigabits per second and full HDCP 2.2 support. It's $40. So that's not so expensive that you just bought an OLED. I'm assuming you can afford $40 to do what you want to do.
So if
That's the split deck from Sewell.
thinking about this correctly, he's gonna have to send the audio from the UDP from his Oppo directly to his receiver.
Using that audio-only second HDMI output.
Then for your video output, you're going to send to your splitter. Your splitter is going to send one up to your projector, one to your OLED. Okay?
Yes.
Now, if they're never on at the same time, then
Right.
the handshake should be, when you turn on whatever you turn on, the handshake should occur,
Yeah.
and you should get to either 1080p or 4K.
Yeah, with your Oppo set to auto in the resolution setting.
Right.
You turn on your BenQ projector, you leave your OLED turned off, you turn on the Oppo, it should detect the BenQ at the other end of the splitter and say, okay, I'm going to send out 1080p. You turn off the BenQ, you turn on the OLED, it should say, okay, I'm going to send out 4K and HDR. That's the hope.
What should happen.
That's
now,
what should happen.
What I said at the very beginning was, you better hope you don't have something that passively is always looking for an HDCP handshake. What that means is there are devices out there that when you plug an HDMI in, you plug a cable into it, it's, even though it's powered off, it's just sort of in standby, but it's still like, yeah, dude, but seriously, be ready. So be ready to send me something. So therefore, let's do the handshake now. If that happens with the LG OLED, it's going to lock onto a 4K, and you turning on the projector's going to go, I can do nothing with this.
Yeah, you're going to get an error message.
So what you then have to do is turn both of them on, go into the menus of your Oppo, tell it, hey, I know I said auto, what I really meant was 1080p only. It will re-handshake with everything, and then you shut off you'll get a picture of your projector, you will shut off your OLED, and then you're off to the races.
Yep.
Which would suck.
Yeah, it'd be a hassle, but at least it could be done.
I don't even know if you could use a Harmony to program that either.
That's too much.
Sounds like a nightmare if there's not some sort of hotkey you can make to make that happen.
Yeah,
if it's a macro, it's going to be a nightmare.
Even the HD Fury doesn't really solve this, because the HD Fury, the normal one, the integral, solves HDCP issues.
Right.
It doesn't solve resolution issues. They have another device called the Linker. That one can solve specifically 4K resolution issues, but it doesn't take 4K and downscale it to 1080p. It goes the other direction.
Right.
So you need one of their scaling units. They have a couple of them, but they're over $250. So that's a big jump in price when hopefully this $40 splitter is all you need.
Is it $40 in Australia too?
Oh, that might be more, but...
All right. Well, he suggested something, but really it's just any sort of 4K splitter.
Yeah, but you want to make sure it has 18 gigabits and HDCP 2.2, because there's lots of splitters that don't.
Yeah, so that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
All right, Leighton. Leighton's home theater is in a dedicated enclosed room. Whenever he throws a party, most people are in the living room, not his theater. So in order to have music going in the living room, he's just been using his computer with its little computer speakers, and those are not cutting it. He doesn't want to install anything new. He'd rather just replace his current computer speakers with new computer speakers that can get the job done. His max budget is $350.
Mm-hmm. Get some audio engines.
Well, yeah, okay. That's a fine suggestion that Rob just made. Audio engines, I have them. I love them. They're great little speakers. They get even the little ones get real loud. Loud enough for your party? I don't know. How loud is your party? Is it a rave, or is it just people?
I'm betting it's beating like those Creative or Logitech computer speakers that I bet it is too. Yeah.
I'm going to suggest that you don't do that, and instead you get yourself a Bluetooth speaker that is bigger, like something from Creative. The iRoar ones that I've been using. What I did with my iRoar, it's so dang loud, dude. It is so loud. I couldn't like with Alexa, you tell Alexa, volume level 1, volume level 2, that sort of thing. It has finer adjustments if you control it directly on top of Alexa. But the top of the iRoar Creative one is 20. I had to set it down to 17 because the difference between 2 and 3 was 2, I cannot hear you. 3, you were too loud.
Yeah.
that was the difference between 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And the thing goes, the other day I put it up to 8, and my wife screamed at me. She's like, "Turn that crap down, Alexa! Turn it down, Alexa! Stop!" And it's so loud.
You gotta
Alexa
stop saying Alexa. People are going to scream at our podcast.
I don't
Some
care.
people listen through the speakers, and it triggers their device.
So
Echo.
yes. So those things can get awfully loud. And what I ended up doing is I took it and I put it I have like a half, not a half, like most of a wall thingy, and I put it across the room, way up high on top of that, and whatever. And it's Bluetooth, so it connects with that. She who shall not be named. And the only problem is that the microwave is now between it and the Bluetooth. So the microphone, every time they use the microwave, the music cuts in and out. But other than that, it's nice. And you can use that with your phone. You don't have to use she who shall not be named. You can use whatever it is that you want in your phone or your device, your iPod, your iPad, whatever. I like that more.
I can totally back that play.
It's nice too because you're not stuck having it all come from that one place. You're like, this party's going outside, dude. Unplug your speaker, take it with you.
Nope.
Do it constantly.
Yep. I can back that. Yep. My audio engine suggestion was strictly if you're like, the only thing I'm going to do is computer speakers. And I'm like, the audio engine computer speakers would be a good choice.
Yes,
so
I would agree with that.
There's that. He did mention he might want to get a subwoofer for $350. It's going to be a challenge. But you could, if you just, because the little audio engine A2s don't play super deep, you could match it with like a Dayton sub 800. That's not going to pressurize your room at all, but at least fill in the extra octave down to 35 hertz or so. Or over at Accessories for Less, they have the Onkyo, the SKW 204 10-inch sub. Which some people are like, Onkyo, $100 10-inch sub. It's actually a pretty decent little sub. I mean, if you just want some extra thump that the A2s can't give you, those are some $100 subs that could fill in the low end a little bit for you. So, those are suggestions. I like Tom's. That's the
iRoar one that I suggested is right
iRoar.
now at Amazon. It's $369 is how much it costs.
Okay, that's darn close.
Yeah, so it's well within there. It does all kinds of stupid things, but the thing is just ridiculously loud.
No.
And it sounds pretty fun. So, how are we on time? We're doing good. Infinite Gary. Gary's leaning towards self-powered speakers. Dude, this guy buys so much stuff. It's amazing. Gary's leaning towards self-powered speakers for his tabletop setup. This is the one with the remember
keyboard.
Keyboard, that's right.
CD player.
He has a CD player with a headphone output and volume control, so he has the option to connect that directly to the self-powered speakers and nothing else in the signal chain. However, he's also been using his Parasound P3 analog preamplifier. Clearly, he wouldn't need an external amp if he's using self-powered speakers, but it would be better or worse to keep the P3 in the signal chain. Also, the P3 has direct XLR plugs and line-out XLR and RCA plugs. Which output should you use for the self-powered speakers? What self-powered speakers does he have? He does not have any. He's thinking about getting some.
He's thinking about some Dynaudios. We suggested the KEF LS50 self-powered model.
Did I suggest that?
No, that was Lee and myself.
Oh, okay. I was very confused there for a second. I'm like, it sounds like a great
you missed
suggestion.
that week.
Yeah, you can leave this Parasound in. I don't think it'll be worse or better. I mean, it's just what it is. I don't know.
I mean, I probably would because the CD player, of course, it has regular line outs.
Yeah.
Which you would need to use with the P3 because the P3 can't take any digital signals, only takes analog. But it's putting all of it into the headphone output. Like most headphone outputs built into CD players, a little bit noisy. I mean, maybe yours isn't. Maybe yours is fantastic. I don't know. Could be. But the only way you're going to have volume control on the CD player is via the headphone output, not via the line outs.
Yeah, I would go with line outs.
I would go with the line outs, and then that's also the same answer for your P3. I know it has these other XLR plugs, but those are actually inputs. The one that says direct is an input. The one that says line out is a line out. So you must use the line out to connect to your self-powered speakers.
Right, and there's you have RCA or XLR, so it depends on what your speakers have.
You're all set up for either or. So yeah, I would keep the P3 in the signal chain. That's what I would do.
Yeah. Gary had his Runco projector recalibrated about 6 weeks ago. He's given himself time to get used to the new image, but compared to his original calibration, he's come to the conclusion that he thinks his new calibration looks undersaturated. Okay.
I'm going to get into that in a bit, that specific word.
It gives him the feeling that he wants to boost the color to get it back the way it looked before. Your calibrator must love you. 2 different professional calibrators who use 2 different meters. Is it possible that different meters give different readings that led to the 2 pro calibrators to different settings? And since Gary doesn't have any test equipment of his own, other than his eyes, how can he determine for himself if his color is spot on or maybe a little undersaturated?
Well, on that second part, you can't.
I was going to say, that's not possible.
You have to have
You have to.
a light meter.
It's...
So I want to talk about this saturated word because, I mean, I get what he means, but saturated has a very specific meaning when it comes to calibrating a display.
It just looks a little dim to him. Isn't that what he's saying? It looks a little dark, maybe, or
I think it looks less vibrant.
Yes.
Right, which is not a technical word. That is a subjective word. Right. So I want to let people know saturated has a very specific meaning because when you're looking at a display, it has a color space to which it is supposed to be adhering. If you're watching HD TV, it is the Rec 709 color space. If you're watching Ultra HD, it is the Rec 2020 color space. But those color spaces define very specific shades of red, green, and blue. Those are the primary colors, and they describe extremely specific shades. Now, undersaturated specifically means that you are closer to the... So what you end up with is a triangular-looking graph.
Yeah, it's got kind of a weird sail-looking design.
But you more or less have a triangle shape of a graph. And undersaturated means that when you measure those primary colors, if they're undersaturated, they're closer to the center of the triangle than the points, the edges, the points of the triangle where they should be.
So they have less of the colors, essentially.
They're closer to being white, a little bit closer to being white than the actual color where they should be. They could also be oversaturated, meaning they're farther out. They're outside of the triangle where they're supposed to be. Perfectly saturated color means they're exactly on the corners of the triangle that those color spaces define. So it's a very specific word, saturated, when it comes to calibrating a display. Now, when you say something looks undersaturated, you typically mean that the color looks less vibrant than you're expecting.
Reds aren't quite as red as usually.
So it might be the right shade, but not as bright. And I think that's actually what's going on. Because I'll bet he's had this projector for a while. It is an LED-based projector, but those do still dim a bit over time.
They just had it calibrated, so...
He just had it calibrated. He even sent me the files, and all the delta errors were under 1.
Jeez.
So that's why he's like, well, could it be the meter, or could the meter have given him a false reading? I mean...
Could. But
I'll bet you your colors are perfectly saturated. I bet they look less vibrant because your projector isn't as bright as before.
Yeah. So
that's my guess.
Okay. Gary. Usually, I don't know about his Runco, but I have never met a projector that could be calibrated that you couldn't save the calibration in some way. So there's, even on my Epsons and the Optimos and stuff that I've used, they've always had like user 1, user 2, user 3. Just save it as if they haven't already saved it, which they probably have, save it as user 1, and then, save it again as user 2. And then go into the user 2 one and play.
Right. Yeah, copy all the... Yeah, even if they didn't save your old one, copy all the settings from whatever you're using now.
Yes.
Copy that into a different settings menu, a different picture menu. And then
change the brightness a little bit. Bump it up once or twice.
Yeah.
It won't kill anything. You won't hurt anything. No. Don't overwrite the original file. Don't overwrite your original settings. That's where we get into trouble, because then your calibrator comes out and says, it was fine, and then you changed it, and now you're saying that something's wrong with it. Well, of course something's wrong with it. You changed it. Let me change it back. There is not. I just want to make sure this is very clear, Gary. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you saying, I know you say it's perfect. I want it different. I don't like it as undersaturated. And the guy is going to know, what do you mean? This should be a little bit redder, or it should be a little bit brighter, it should be a little bit a little more vibrant. And they'll be able to translate that into a setting that you'll be happy with. So, yes, you've lived with it for a while. You're fine. You can I would suggest you just play with it yourself because you like to do this stuff anyways. You might as well save it again. Heck, save it in every single one of those save spots that you have an option of saving it. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then because I think the Epson I've got has got something like 10 or 11 spots.
Yeah.
Just save it as original or something like that, and then you can say brightness, contrast, blah 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 blah, and these are all the things you're going to play with, but you're only going to play with it on the one that you've got until you get it exactly what you want, and then live with that. So that's what I would do. Francis, this comes from Facebook. He says he's originally from Ghana, West Africa, but he's now living in London, so we count those 2 continents. Yes, Francis uses a Sony 1040 AV receiver with B&W's M1 mini theater speakers and dual SVS subs. I'm clicking on this B&W link because I've never seen this thing before.
So they're, I think they actually said those are like 5 1/4 inch drivers, so they're very similar to like the Focal Birds.
Right. They look like computer speakers, but they're bigger, it looks like, a little bit. So
they're certainly not large, but they're not tiny.
Yeah. So, if that's a 5.5 inch driver in that thing, it's got to be like this big. So a small bookshelf, we'll call them. Okay. Yeah. The Sony's auto setup always sets the front speakers to 130 hertz crossover and the surrounds to 120, even though the B&W specifications say that M1s can play down to 65 hertz and minus 3 dB. So the crossover is set too high.
I'll bet you dollars to donuts that figure that B&W gets is when they're mounted on a wall.
Yeah,
and maybe yours aren't.
Yeah, this is one of those things where you're like, okay, let's be real here. Yes, technically you can put these things, and I've had this happen to me in reviews where I've taken the speaker. That company no longer exists, right?
Elemental Designs.
Yeah, they're gone, right? Elemental Designs sent me a tower speaker, and they were speccing it down to like ridiculous. I don't remember what it was, like 30 or 35 or something like that. And I measured it, and it was like 80 or maybe 90 hertz is when it started rolling off. And I contacted them. I'm like, dude, what is going on? Like, yeah, they totally go down to that. I'm like, did you put it in the corner? They're like,
yeah.
You can't spec your speaker in the corner. That's not how you spec speakers. What's wrong with you people?
12 decibels of boundary gain.
Yeah, okay. So probably what's going on here. And you know what? I don't really begrudge them that much because these speakers, they're
kind of meant to go on the wall.
They're kind of meant to go on the wall or that sort
yeah.
of thing. So, I think it's a reasonable assumption that people could get, like a reasonable person might put these against a wall and get this performance. Do I think 130 hertz and 120 hertz is too high? No.
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 No, again, really reminds me of the Focal Birds or the NHT Supersats.
Yeah.
Similar thing. You have them mounted on the wall, they'll get down to 90, 80 hertz. All of these designs, and they're all very similar.
Yeah.
Take them away from the wall, you'll probably end up with about 120 hertz crossover. That totally makes sense. That's very often the case, and that isn't so high that you're really going to be worrying about localizing your subwoofers or things like that. That's totally reasonable. 120 hertz, nothing to worry about.
Yeah. So he's a self-proclaimed beginner when it comes to home theater, and he'd just like to learn how to calibrate his audio setup manually rather than just relying on the auto setup. So what are the basics that he needs to know just so that he can calibrate his speakers or adjust his own speaker settings manually? That's a great question. We haven't actually answered this in a long time.
Yeah.
So you need, and then Rob's going to tell you where to get it, you need to set up your speakers, tape measure.
Yep.
And some sort of audio SPL meter. So sound pressure level meter. Yeah. Okay. What this does is measure, how loud, basically, how much pressure is being received. I would also suggest that you need some sort of stand to put this meter on. It's not
very good idea.
Mandatory,
like
but it is much, much better than not having it. So if you've got a tripod, that's great. If you don't, you can figure something out. I've used like cardboard boxes. Anything really.
Or there are very inexpensive tripods that you.
There are. My tripod is extremely inexpensive. So yes. So how do you do this? Well, I feel very confident in saying every AV receiver has some sort of manual test tone generator in it.
Yeah, usually what you do is go into the menus and it'll be under speaker setup.
Yes.
And there'll be something that says something like speaker levels or trim levels or just levels, but something with levels in it.
Right.
And normally you go into there and you will go one speaker at a time. And when you highlight a speaker, it'll start playing some noise. It sounds like...
Yeah.
That's what'll come out of one speaker at a time.
That's right. Now, before you do this, just in case, you're going to set your volume level on your receiver to 0 dB. If you've got that, just in case. And then afterwards, you're going to remember to turn it back down.
Yeah.
Very important.
We also need to clarify, not every receiver, what you want is a scale. So when you're turning your volume dial or your master volume dial, what you want to see are a whole bunch of negative numbers. So you'll start at negative 79 or something as you turn it all the way down. You turn the volume dial up, it'll eventually get up to 0, and then it'll go a little ways into positive numbers, maybe all the way up to 12 or 18 or something like that.
I would never know. I never.
That's the scale we're hoping to see, because that lets us know on that scale where most of it is negative numbers, and you go through 0 into a small amount of positive numbers. 0 on that volume dial is reference volume. That's what we call it.
If you do not have the option of doing this and you've been through the settings and you can't figure out the way to turn it on, Google is your friend. Mm-hmm. So figure out if you can turn it to this reference scale that we're talking about. If you can't, search for your receiver, your volume, your receiver model number, and then reference volume setting. Or
because you might have a scale that 0 is the lowest and it goes up to 100, and that's just, it's arbitrary.
But someplace in there
like
will
84 or something like that. It's usually in the 80s. Usually ends up in the 80s.
So figure out what it is, right? Set it to that. Hit the test tones. Now you're going to have your meter. Don't know which one it's going to be. If you can, we're going to set it onto a tripod or something that will hold it, and you want the microphone to be pointed directly straight up at the ceiling.
Yes, that many people make that mistake. They'll aim the microphone of the SPL meter at whatever speaker is playing. You don't want that. It's an omnidirectional mic. You want it pointed straight up at the ceiling.
You want it to be at where your head would be. So like right if you picture where your head would be, you're going to have it like right between your ears. That's where you want it to be. Okay. But then you want to make sure it is at least like 12 inches from the from the couch itself. So if you've got like a high couch and your couch, you would normally have your head on the couch, take where your nose would be, and then, basically make sure that wherever that is 12 inches from. So if you have to move it a little bit forward, that's fine. Okay.
Yeah, in other words, look at the microphone. You want a 1 foot bubble around that a 1 foot radius bubble around that microphone of free air. You don't want any solid surfaces within a 1 foot radius bubble around that microphone.
Right. Then you hit your test tone and you're going to look at your meter. Your meter, you're going to be looking for it to read 75. If it does not read 75, it's very easy. You're going to use your remote control on your receiver to either increase or decrease the trim level of that speaker into your SPL meter, which is set to C weighting.
Yes.
And slow response.
Yes.
And then that will give you the most accurate reading, or the only accurate reading. And when it's stuck at 75 dB, you go to your next speaker. And you're going to go all the way around the room or ceiling or whatever you got until you've got all your speakers set at 75 dB. You're then going to save and exit or whatever it tells you to do. You're going to exit that. You're then going to go to your tape measure and your speaker distances. And you're going to set speaker distances for each one of your speakers based on how far away they are from where your head is.
Yep.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to recommend, if you don't have an SPL meter, there's one from a company called Triplet. You can get it at Parts Express or at Amazon. It is their MC1 sound level meter. It goes for about $40. The important thing here is it does have C weighting with slow response. That's what we want. So not too expensive, nice digital readout, small, has a little threaded insert on the back for a tripod.
I was just looking for that.
That's all you need. So that's fine as far as tools go.
Yeah.
Now, the last part of this, because now we've set your speaker levels and we've set your speaker distances. The last part is the crossover setting.
Right.
And this is a little bit trickier to do manually. All right. what I'm going to suggest, you begin, this is not where you're going to end up, you begin by setting all of your speakers to large and your subwoofer to yes. This is where you begin. And you're going to go to a place called audiocheck.net. Audiocheck.net, you go to their signal generation section. What does the tab say there? I forgot what that says, but signal generations thing. What you want to do is create a
signal generator.
Tone gen up at the top. That's what it says. So audiocheck.net, you go to their tone gen section and you want their sweep tone generator. And you're going to make yourself a sweep. Now, I would start with a sweep that begins at 300 hertz and goes down to 40 hertz. Don't need to go any lower than that. So 300 hertz to 40 hertz, make it about 10 seconds long. And there is a check mark there that says markers. By default, there is no check mark in that box next to the thing that says markers. You want the markers in there, all right? Now, when you listen to that sweep play, what you want to do is play that sweep through one speaker at a time. So that might mean physically disconnecting speakers, right? Because you only want one speaker playing at a time. And you're going to play this 300 to 40 hertz sweep that's 10 seconds long with these markers. And what you're going to hear is a little... There's a little mark. That's what the markers are. And you're going to hear one of those at 300 hertz, 200 hertz, 100 hertz. And then you're going to hear them at 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40. That's where you're going to hear the markers. So it's 300, 200, 100, and then 10 hertz at a time below 100. So that way you can count the little sounds and know approximately what frequency you're hearing. So you're going to listen to that sweep play through one speaker at a time, and you're going to notice at some point the sweep gets quieter. And once you notice that, you're going to make you might have the sweep playing on repeat. So you're going to make a mental note. Okay, what marker was that? That happened just before the marker at 100 hertz. So I know that these speakers start to roll off. They start to get quieter somewhere between 100 and 200 hertz, right? Maybe it was just before the little marker that sounds at 100 hertz. So it's probably 120, 150 hertz, right. Something like that. That's where you're going to notice it. You make a mental note of that and you go, okay, that's where I'm going to set the crossover for that speaker. You do that one speaker at a time and you'll be able to figure out where you should set your crossover. You want to set the crossover above the marker where it started to get quieter when you're listening to the sweep. That's how you can set your crossovers manually.
Yeah. Most of us stopped at the distance, okay? And just went to the... we just
and set everything at 80 and left it alone?
Set everything at 80 and left it alone. Now, in your case, it probably makes a little bit more sense. If you really want to do it this way, you can see why you would. Because most of us will send it to 80 and leave it alone because 80 hertz, most speakers get down to 80 hertz, and in fact that's why B&W was probably doing whatever magic they were doing to show that they could get down to 65 hertz, because no one wants to admit their speaker doesn't get down to 80 hertz. No one wants to admit that on paper, so they'll do whatever they can to make sure that it looks like they can. So you might say to us after listening to us say, so if I put this thing against a wall, will it get down to 65? No, probably
get to 90.
We'll say 90. If you put it in the corner, like with three sides, like near the ceiling or near the floor, you'll get to 65, maybe-ish. But yeah, so you may decide to just move your speakers in that case, just so you get a little bit extra frequency response out of them. I don't know that that's necessary, but you can see why this would make a difference. Now, Rob, I heard you say unplug. Oh, dang it! I hit my thing. You unplug individual speakers so that you're only having one speaker playing. Did you say unplug the sub too?
I didn't say that specifically. No,
you have to have the sub off during this, because if not, then the sub's going to kick in whenever the crossover is. You need to have the sub off. So really, what you should...
And I should also very clearly say, once you've figured out what that crossover is going to be, you go back in your menus, you set your speakers to small,
and then you
use that crossover that you just figured out.
Now, if you have not the entry level ones, but most receivers will allow you to set individual crossovers for your mains, at the very least, mains, center, surround backs individually. Mm-hmm. Okay, maybe not in each individual speaker, but as a pair, of thing.
Yeah.
Some will let you do each individual speaker. It's not very common. Some will just have a global one, in which case, whichever is your highest speaker, that's the global setting you'll have to use.
Yep.
Okay. So that's that. That's everything. That's the kit and caboodle. That's all the things. Will not help you do any sort of calibration, but it will help you set up your speakers perfectly. There we go. Martin. How long is this? Because I'm losing my voice.
Not too long.
Yeah, this is a lot of reading,
Might be the last one.
This looks like the last one. So Martin squeaked in, dude. In Martin's setup, his sofa is right up against the back wall, and one side is completely open. He has a pair of Mirage OmniSat speakers mounted on the back wall that he's been using as his surround speakers. Okay. He also has 4 in-ceiling speakers, 2 that are more or less directly above the couch and 2 that are at 45-degree elevation in front of the couch, so he's configured this system as 5.2.4. Would there be any potential benefit in relabeling his speakers so the 2 in-ceiling speakers directly above him are configured as his surround speakers, while his Mirage OmniSats on the back wall are configured as his surround back, giving him a 7.2.2 setup instead?
I wouldn't do that.
I don't like that.
Not when your couch is more or less against that back wall.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go for surround backs.
I don't think I would. I mean, I don't know.
If you didn't have Atmos, I'd be telling you to stop at 5.2.
Yeah, I would do.
Since Absolutely. You do have Atmos, I'd be telling you to go to 5.2.4.
Yeah.
Under no circumstance in this seating situation would I tell you to go to 7.
No. You're not going to be able to get them behind you anyway, so they're off to the sides.
Nah. Yeah.
So, yeah. Martin's front speakers are XTZ Cinemas. He's been considering replacing his Mirage surround speakers with XTZ S5 surrounds that offer 3 different modes: direct, dipole, and direct firing plus dipole.
Yeah, because they got these 2 speakers on the sides. Those are your dipole optionals. And then they have drivers on the front. So you can use just the drivers on the front. You can use just the drivers on the sides.
Oh, they
or
look
you
like
can use
bookshelf
all
speakers.
3 sides. Yeah.
Oh, they look like bookshelf speakers. Okay, right. Okay, good. Anyways, he's thinking about getting those. Given that these speakers would be mounted on the back wall behind the sofa, it would be beneficial to use the dipole mode that creates a null and a more diffuse sound. I
wouldn't.
Don't like that. I like facing them towards each other and using the direct as much as you can. That's
to me, this is almost a little bit of a waste of money paying for drivers that you're not going to use.
I don't know. The OmniStats
XTZ,
aren't the OmniStats like omnidirectional speakers though?
Yeah, well, that's where the tweeter is actually facing up.
You see, I do.
And dispersing it.
Yeah. I do agree that you should get direct firing speakers for your surrounds. I don't think.
Yeah, but he was mostly thinking for the dipole mode. I'm like, not for the dipole mode. I just get some direct firing speakers.
Yeah, I would get some direct firing speakers, whatever they might be. Oh yeah, these OmniStats must be not.
Yeah,
these are fine speakers. I don't want anybody to think I don't like the speakers. They're fine.
Right.
All right. I think in this application they are completely inappropriate. So I would get direct firing speakers. I don't care what model you get from whomever you want to get them from. Put them as far behind you as you could possibly get them, and face them towards each other.
Yeah, XTZ has a model called the S2.
Yeah.
Really versatile speaker. It's actually a coaxial design.
Oh, that's even better.
Can go on the ceiling, can go on the wall, mounted in all kinds of different orientations. That's the way. It's less expensive than the S5.
Right.
That's the one I would go for. Totally wall mountable, oriented whatever direction you want. That's the one. S2.
Yeah. So but the wall mounting would be having them face directly into the room. Are they going to be right behind his head? Or I would like them to be facing each other.
Yeah, they can. You can mount them that way. That's one of the options.
Is it really? They look awfully flat.
No, you can mount them on their back, or you can mount them on their butt.
Okay.
So you can have them sticking out from the wall more, but facing each other.
Right.
That's one of the options.
Direct firing, facing each other, as far back behind you as you can possibly get. Scoot your couch out a little bit. Using a C-weighted SPL meter, he wasn't able to get his XTC 1 by 12, whatever, subwoofer to register 75 dB when playing the trim level test tone from his Yamaha RXA 3050 Avantage.
Yeah.
I haven't said that in a while. I like saying it. He even tried putting a subwoofer's volume dial at its maximum setting and putting the receiver's trim level as maximum as well, but the reading on the SPL meter never went higher than 70 to 71. Is it possible the Yamaha isn't outputting a sufficient voltage from a sub pre-out? Is it possible that this subwoofer isn't appropriate for this room? I think that's...
Or is it possible you didn't have your Yamaha's master volume set to 0 dB before you played the test tone?
That could be it too.
That's actually my top suspect.
Okay.
Because like we keep saying, you shouldn't have to, but you do.
Sometimes
have
you do.
to.
So set your volume level to 0 dB. Try it again.
Yeah.
See if this.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is the thing, right?
I'm
What
betting.
I would have expected though, is after he did all this, set the volume to max, set the trim level to max, and afterwards he should have complained about his bass being too loud. Right?
Oh, I see. Yeah.
He didn't complain about that. He said he didn't say afterwards it was plenty loud. To me, that tells me the subwoofer is too small for this room, and it's as plain as loud as it can.
It's possible. I mean, he did say he's got no sidewall on one side, right?
Yeah, I mean,
One side is completely open.
Still, who knows where? Who knows where this thing is? It could be 25 feet away from him for all
yeah,
we
I mean,
know.
I wouldn't expect it to pressurize his room. I wouldn't expect you to be feeling your chest caving in, but just
75
just
dB should be doable with a 12-inch
yeah,
sub.
like 60, 70 hertz. That should be no problem for this sub. I strongly suspect he was just playing the trim level thing and didn't have the master volume set to 0 dB beforehand. I really strongly suspect that.
All right. Give it a try.
Because the Yamaha, one of the complaints that Gene has is that Yamaha is topping out at about 1.6, 1.7 volts or so. But essentially every subwoofer out there maxes out when it gets 1.3 volts.
Yeah.
So even though there isn't a ton of headroom out of the Yamaha's pre-outs, it's enough to get any subwoofer up to its full maximum volume. So I don't think it's what you asked. I don't think that it's not putting out sufficient voltage from its subwoofer output. Yeah. There you go.
All right. Nick. Harman has research that says that the best placement for two subwoofers in a sealed rectangular room is the midpoints of opposing walls.
They do.
Rob has mentioned in passing several times that if you place two subwoofers at the midpoints of the front and back wall, that you get rid of or minimize the standing waves from front to back. If you place them at the midpoints of the side walls, you get rid of or minimize the standing waves from left to right. Does that mean if we are interested in getting good seats in both rows of a 2-row theater, then you should opt for midpoints of the front and back walls? And if you just have one row of seating, then you should opt for them at midpoints of the side walls. I haven't heard anybody say that.
Yeah, what you want to do is get rid of your worst standing wave.
Right.
Your worst standing wave is going to be the shortest dimension of your room.
Right.
So if you set up your room like most people do, which is that it's longer from front to back and not as wide. Now, maybe, plenty of people have the room set up so that it's wider than it is long from front to back. So normally the advice is get rid of your worst standing wave, which is the shorter dimension of your room.
Right.
Sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes you don't.
I can't.
Sometimes you don't have the width that's going to block a walkway. So,
Yeah.
okay, you don't do that. You go for the next best choice.
Right.
But yeah, it has less to do with how many rows of seating and more to do with getting rid of your worst. Because the shorter dimension means the standing wave is going to be at a higher frequency, and the higher the frequency, the easier it is for you to notice. Because there's much more content happening above 35 hertz than there is below 35 hertz,
Right.
for example. So if you have a higher frequency standing wave, you're going to notice that more often than a lower frequency standing wave. So get rid of the higher one. That's the general advice.
With Odyssey, the new app sounds nice for changing the target curve, but how will dynamic EQ work if you do change the target curve? If we choose to boost the bass in the target curve, could it be possible that dynamic EQ further boosts the bass if you're listening below reference volume to the point where the bass is boosted too much? On the other hand, boosting the bass so that it is always audible no matter the volume level sounds very attractive. So what are our thoughts? All right, okay, you're thinking about this weird. All right. It's okay. It's a completely normal thing. All right. Let's pretend that you're listening, you're doing your target curve or whatever, and you're listening to things that you should be listening to stuff at reference volume, and you're like, I want this to be a little bit more bassy. All dynamic EQ does is maintain that perception of sound, of bass, regardless of volume level. Okay. As you reduce the volume level, it will get quieter, but the amount of bass should sound to your ear the same. It's just going to be quieter. So it's not like you're going to boost the bass in your target curve, and that curve, now once you lower the volume, your bass still stays real high. No, everything comes down, but the bass relative to everything else is a little bit hotter because of your target curve.
Yeah, you can sort of think of dynamic EQ as an offset.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So it'll say, when you turn the volume down by 5 decibels, I'm going to increase the bass below 30 hertz by 3 dB. It's going to do that regardless, right? Wherever you set your initial target curve, which is at full reference volume, It's an offset. So what makes dynamic EQ dynamic is that you turn it down by 5 dB, it maybe boosts the bass, the lowest bass, a little tiny bit. It just offsets it. 3 dB, whatever it is, something like that. I'm just guessing. Then when you turn it down to -10 on the volume dial, it goes, oh, well, now I need to boost things by 5 dB below these frequencies. And maybe some of these other frequencies I need to boost a little bit as well. It's just an offset. You go down to -20, it goes, well, now I need to do that even more. Right? So it's not a static EQ in that it's boosting it by the same amount regardless of what you set the master volume. It's just that for every click on the master volume, there is a new offset being applied. So that's all it is. It's just a table of offsets. That's what dynamic EQ is doing.
That's right. So it makes the change no matter what. It's just that those changes are different at different volume levels and at different frequencies because of the research that they did.
The curves of equal loudness.
Yeah. Lastly, he says, if we change the target curve in Odyssey, then at what frequency is reference volume measured? All of the frequencies? I mean, it's not all of them, I guess. With the preset target curve, the frequency response should be pretty flat, but if some frequencies are boosted using the app, what effect does that have on reference volume? Well, I mean, it doesn't have any effect on reference volume because when we're level matching the speakers, if that's what you're talking about, that's done with a chirp.
It's A-weighted pink noise.
Yeah, it's just
what it is. It's A-weighted pink noise.
It's just, whatever that is, right? And that's at reference volume, and which is 75 dB, at least in the room. That's what it is when you're doing the measurements. Then it does that, and then you apply the curve afterwards.
Yeah.
So that means that at reference volume, if you play the whatever it was or whatever, then the bass of the curve of the might be a little bit hot, and the treble might be a little bit low, but that is between you and whatever your target curve was. I mean, you did that. But the reference volume is still reference volume. You just change what happens at specific frequencies based on your curve. I guess that's the answer. I mean, maybe I'm not understanding what he's asking, but it's...
Yeah, no, I think he's wondering, like, let's say for some reason you put in 12 decibels of boost at 2 kilohertz. Some super audible frequency, and you boosted it like crazy. He's like, okay, now if you pulled out your SPL meter and you played the test tone that's supposed to be registering 75 dB, playing A-weighted pink noise, well, because I put in this insane boost at a really audible frequency, my SPL meter might actually say it's too loud.
Yeah, but that curve is applied after, not before.
Right.
Unless you're playing test tones with a disc through your system with Odyssey on, in which case, yes, it would read something completely weird.
Yeah, an external test tone. But if you're using the AV receiver's internal test tones, those don't apply any equalization to the sound. It's just A-weighted pink noise. That's all they're playing. Right. So you set your reference volume first, and then you go ahead and tune it to taste. Tune your EQ to taste.
As you wish.
Knock yourself out.
This will be the last question. So
yeah, it's a one-word answer, so that's perfect. Fred's really long, so there's no way we're doing that.
No, we're not doing it, Fred. Tate. Rob mentioned on last week's show that he used to have a Denon X5200W, but replaced it with a Marantz SR7010 to get the latest features at the time. Yeah. Since Rob went directly between the two brands, could he hear... I'm going to answer before you answer. Could he hear a difference sonically between the two? No. Could not. Rob, am I right?
Tom is correct.
Okay, thank you.
No, I couldn't hear a difference.
And he's got really sensitive, high-performing speakers, too, in a room that's treated in the whole 9 yards. Anyways, he asked because he's been a Marantz user for 17 years, so he's afraid to leave the Marantz brand in case he doesn't like the sound of another brand, even in the case of a sister brands like Denon and Marantz. Is there really anything to fear? Absolutely not. And feel free to switch into Yamaha as well. Mm-hmm. Feel free to switch... Well, I would just switch to Pioneer. Onkyo. I mean, technically, you shouldn't hear anything. Anthem, sure.
I will tell you the most disappointing upgrade I've ever made, and it was actually early on when you would expect bigger upgrades to happen. Most disappointing upgrade I ever made, the first, not the first. Okay, wow. I had an RCA home theater in a box, right? 5.1 home theater in a box. It's pretty crappy. I upgraded that to a Kenwood AV receiver, which was like the first receiver that had Dolby Pro Logic 2. Because at the time I had a GameCube, and the GameCube could only have surround sound and Dolby Pro Logic 2. So I was like, I gotta have a Dolby Pro Logic 2 AV receiver. Got myself a Kenwood. Wasn't very expensive. Had some Polk speakers. They weren't terribly expensive, but compared to the RCA home theater box, big upgrade. My next upgrade, I was like, I got to get a new AV receiver. I got to get one that can do 7 speakers. It's going to be so much better. I got a pretty high-end Yamaha at the time. Well-regarded. I think it was the 2500.
Yeah,
really
I seem to remember that receiver.
Yeah. Really well-regarded receiver. It wasn't HDMI, didn't exist yet or anything like that. But I was expecting, because I didn't change my speakers, didn't change the room. Everything was the same. I just went from the Kenwood AV receiver to that Yamaha. This was a cheapo Kenwood to a quite high-end Yamaha. Didn't hear a lick of difference.
I was the same way, dude. That was the
most disappointing upgrade I've ever made.
When I went from the whatever Onkyo I had which was an analog only. I mean, this was pre-digital, to like the Denon 3805. That was like that was the receiver, right? That was like the last great pre-HDMI receiver from Denon that everybody loved. I expected to hear a lot of difference too, and I was like, it literally sounds exactly the same. Now, I got that, I also got a bunch of new speakers, so I was super happy. But I didn't notice any difference in the sound when I plugged in my old speakers. It's the same stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I'm not saying that the Yamaha wasn't more capable than the Kenwood.
You buy a receiver
I was in a room,
features.
I was in a room that was like 14 feet long and about 11 feet wide, with tower speakers, like, the extra wattage that was in that Yamaha, I'm never going to use. I was using 2 watts per channel max, It was, so at that point, the Kenwood's amplifiers were just fine, humming along just fine. They weren't causing any problems. So yeah, that was most disappointing. Now, when I went from a Polk 10-inch 100-watt subwoofer to an HSU VTF3, that I noticed.
When I got my EP500 and I plugged it in, I listened to the people on the line online that said, turn it to half or whatever, and started the movie, and like things started falling down in the kitchen. I was like, notice that for sure.
Now see, that VTF3 is when I learned about Auralex grandma risers, subdued risers, because this was I was still at my parents' place when I started. This was at the tail end of high school when I did all this. Concrete basement. All these people who are like, oh, concrete, you don't need anything. Concrete basement. Well, there's a window in that room. It was a shaken with that HSU. I was like, well, that's just because there's crazy bass in here. But I was starting to, read up on this stuff. So I'm like, well, let me try one of these, isolation risers, put it in there. I'm like, now, it's not that the window never shook again, but it was only at very specific frequencies where the window itself was resonating. Other than that, it went away. I was like, what do you know? These 4 little feet digging into the concrete foundation can still physically shake stuff. Weird. It's like, it's all these people who deny that a pillow makes a difference on something that's physically shaking. Don't understand that logic. But anyway, yes, to answer your question, no, I heard no difference between the X5200 and the SR7010. You should absolutely have no fears about going to a brand other than Marantz.
All right, we are going to stop here. We're going to say Fred, Brandon, I am scrolling, Neil, Wesley, Jason, Mark. We will talk to you next week. So we went through a lot of questions today. We went a little extra long. I'm sorry about that. Or those of you that only work out for as long as this podcast is on, take
you got some extra crunches.
Take some Advil. You'll make the healing process faster. We do want to thank our listener of the week. That's Luke, for going to www.avrant.com and clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link and leaving us a donation. We really appreciate, Luke. You have our love and admiration, sir.
Yes, Luke, thank you for the donation. I'll also thank Nathan. Congrats on those L22 rhythmics that you purchased to add to your F15 HPs. That's some overkill, but good on it. Trust me, we understand. Tom and I completely understand. That's just fine.
If it's a sickness, I don't want to be cured, sir. If it's a sickness, I refuse the vaccine.
PC-13 Ultras in a 12 by 13 room. 7-foot ceiling. That's me. I understand.
Yeah. All right. This is AVRant, the podcast that answers your questions. To get your AV or home theater question answered, all you have to do is ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. All the rest of our contact information is in front of this podcast. So, for AVRant, I'm Tom Andrew.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.